After a great week, why not spend the weekend watching the libs squirm a little more? Matt Walsh's Am I Racist?, the #1 documentary of the decade, is streaming exclusively on DailyWire Plus. Not a member yet? Head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code TRUMP for 47% off your new annual membership. As President Trump prepares to fix the country, the left continues its temper tantrum. It is now 3 days since Trump demolished Kamala Harris at the ballot box, and the liberal meltdown continues. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. Women are shaving their heads over President Trump's win. That doesn't seem like the healthiest way to cope with getting a better government. But we'll get into what it means. First, however, you got to check out Coin. The fight to take our country back does not stop at Election Day. We can get in the fight right now with Coin, the conservatives' credit card. Find out more at coign.com. Instead of funneling millions of dollars to the left like other credit cards, Coin advances conservative values, causes, and charities. Imagine the satisfaction of earning cashback rewards while fighting the liberal agenda. Coin works everywhere Visa is accepted, comes with 100% U.S.-based customer service and consumer protections. Not to mention it's a great-looking credit card. It's bright red. It says "We the People" on the front. You know, we try to stop giving our money to corporations that hate us, and yet so many people are just constantly using their credit card to funnel money to corporations that hate us. Well, don't do that. Right now, you can go to coin.com to join the wait list. A lot of people want this card, so there actually is a wait list right now. But I highly recommend you get on the wait list so that you can start using it. Be sure to select Daily Wire in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Terms apply. coign.com/disclosure for full details. Coin.com. Check it out now. We're also getting some breaking news. Breaking as of last night, and then even some that's breaking earlier this morning. Dave McCormick has won his Senate seat in Pennsylvania. He has ousted Bob Casey, the Pennsylvania Democrat. Dave McCormick, very strong Republican candidate. This was a tight race, and Bob Casey has not yet conceded because it's patriotic to refuse to accept election results if you're a Democrat, according to the libs. But he's won. The AP has called the race. The Republicans have 53 seats in the Senate. We'll see what happens. Arizona's still counting ballots. There might be some lawsuits in Nevada. We'll see what happens there. But at the very least, Republicans have 53 Senate seats. Very, very good news. Congratulations to Dave McCormick on a hard-fought, extremely expensive Senate campaign that further cements President Trump's mandate, the Republicans' mandate to govern. Now, speaking of President Trump, we have news on that front, too. President Trump has selected his chief of staff, and the winner is Susie Wiles, who ran the Trump campaign. This is a really impressive pick. It's a really smart pick. Susie Wiles has a phenomenal, incredible career in Republican politics. Really, really tough. She really burst onto the scene for a lot of people's attention when she helped launch Rick Scott down in Florida. But she's had a storied career in politics. Very impressive woman. But the other reason that this pick is delightful is because in the final days of the campaign, Mark Cuban launched this attack on Donald Trump that Trump does not ever surround himself with strong, intelligent women. And I thought, Trump seems only to surround himself with strong, intelligent women. The first woman who ever won an American presidential campaign as the campaign manager was Kellyanne Conway. That was Trump's campaign manager. Trump's next successful campaign manager, Susie Wiles, who's now going to become the White House chief of staff. You think about all the women, terrific press secretaries, Sarah Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany. You think of the lawyers, you think of Hope Hicks, the communications director, you think of Ivanka Trump, President Trump's daughter, who's had a very successful career in her own right. The list goes on. I don't want to exclude anyone, but we'd be here all day if we listed all the strong, intelligent women that Trump has around him. And now he's picked one to run the White House, to have the key position in the White House. She did a great job on the Trump campaign. Obviously, it was a total success, complete tsunami for Trump and the Republicans. So that pick is cemented. One expects more senior White House staff cabinet officials to be unveiled in the next couple of weeks. And then, on top of all of that, I will be going to Iowa on Monday. I'm real excited. This is, I think, my final YAF speech of the semester. We may have one more, but it might be my final of this semester. And the timing was perfect because it is right after the election. The title of that speech, which I had to submit a month or so ago, is Our Long National Nightmare, because I felt it would work no matter who won the election. If Trump won, you could say our long national nightmare is over. And if Kamala won, you could say our long national nightmare is just beginning. Or at the very least, it's continuing. So anyway, if you want tickets to that, I put a link on my X page. But you can also go to yaf.org or just Google Michael Knowles, University of Iowa. Get your tickets. Get your tickets now, though. I think it's going to be a hot event because people are celebrating and they're very, very happy. And then some other people are very, very angry, but in any case, passions are running high. It should be a great time. Now, speaking of the people who are really angry over President Trump winning, the meltdown is continuing. There's a clip, at this point, it's a day or two old, but I really don't want to miss it amid the flurry of news. And that, of course, would be Jimmy Kimmel crying on national television over Trump's victory.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
Tears in his eyes glistening the whole time. This man used to host The Man Show. He hosted a show on Comedy Central for years with Adam Carolla called The Man Show. It's a terrible night. It's a terrible night for women and children and immigrants. It's a terrible night for Ukraine and our allies. And the irony, of course, is the opposite is true. If it's a terrible night for free speech, what are you talking about? The libs were openly running on censoring conservatives. The free speech issue is the issue, probably more than any, certainly toward the top of the list, that got Elon Musk and Joe Rogan to support Trump in this campaign. The left has openly called to censor conservatives. They're doing that today. They're saying there's too much misinformation out there. We need to stop these conservatives. We need to shut down conservative podcasts. They put my face in the header of the New York Times. Didn't cite a single thing I said. Didn't mention me once, but right there in the middle of their header, these podcasts spreading misinformation, the insinuation being that social media needs to censor conservatives. Bad night. Oh, it's a bad night for children. Bad night for children. Trump's campaign ran on two things. We're going to diminish the number of babies who can be killed, and we're going to stop Democrats from castrating little kids. Seems like it was a great night for kids. Terrible night for women. Oh, that's odd. How is it then that married women voted for Trump and even unmarried women and even young women in particular moved more into Trump's direction over 2020? How do you explain that? Terrible night for immigrants. Terrible night. And what kind of immigrants? I assume he's speaking about Hispanic immigrants. That's usually what they mean because they're referring to our open border and the mass migration from Latin America. Okay, well then why did Trump win 46% of Hispanics? Seems like all of these groups in huge numbers did not think it was such a terrible night because they actually voted for Trump. And one of the few people crying is Jimmy Kimmel. Why is he crying? I think he might be crying in part because of his diminished relevance. The fact that I'm only getting to this story 2 days later, 3 days later, tells you the whole deal. Tells you that what the New York Times said and the Washington Post said, at least on this story, is true. That the establishment media's relevance and power is greatly diminished. Smacking my cigar box around. I'm so animated by this. Greatly diminished. A terrible night for you. Terrible night for Ukraine. The Joe Biden's grand strategy on Ukraine has been to use Ukraine as a meat grinder to inadvertently slaughter lots of Ukrainians, but to do so for the purpose of slaughtering lots of Russians, which will degrade our adversary in Russia and, in the grand strategic view, benefit the United States. That's the actual strategy. I'm not reading tea leaves here. That is the explicit and intentional strategy in Ukraine. Trump's strategy, well, when he was president, was to not let the Ukraine war kick off, which is why Putin did not further invade any country on Trump's watch. First time in 20 years that that's happened. But furthermore, Trump's strategy now is to end the war. Seems like it's a pretty good night for Ukraine. Seems like it's a pretty good night for the whole world. But not for Jimmy Kimmel. Tears in his eyes. And those people who voted for him, they'll find out too. Well, I don't know. 3.5 years, inflation's gone up by at least 22, 23%. Some places maybe more like 30%. And mass migration has become so terrible that even the Democrat mayor of New York says that the Biden-Harris policy is going to destroy New York City. And wars have kicked off in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East. Both areas, a tinderbox. I don't know. Castrating kids, killing babies. I don't know. It seems like it's Tuesday night was a good night for everybody. And it was a good night because people went out, not only to give an electoral college majority, but the majority of Americans went out to vote for Trump because they know that a Trump presidency is going to be better. Quite a lovely night indeed. Now, if you're a homeowner like me, when is the last time you checked on the title of your home? If the answer is never, which it probably is, you need to know about a fast-growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. There's a document called a quitclaim deed showing that one can gift a residence to a fake person that doesn't exist. This document gets stamped with a fake notary seal, and by paying a small fee and filing it with county officials, it's done. That's all it takes for your home or my home to be transferred out of our names without our knowledge. They take out loans using your home as collateral, then they disappear, leaving you with a financial and legal nightmare. But you can protect yourself from this despicable crime, truly hideous fraud crime, right now with triple lock protection from Home Title Lock. The first step is to check on your home's title to make sure that you are not already a victim. You can get a free 30-day trial and a free title history report when you use the promo code Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, at HomeTitleLock.com, or use the link in the description below. That is HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Knowles, K-N-O-W-L-E-S. You will get 30 days of protection, and you will get a title report for free. Dante puts the fraudsters, the people who betray their benefactors in particular, in the lowest circles of hell. Do not allow yourself to become a victim of fraud, of this awful crime. Go check out now. Make sure that your home is okay. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Knowles. While Jimmy Kimmel is crying, the ladies of The View are shrieking. They are specifically placing blame at the feet of Latinos, whom they claim are misogynistic.
And finally, we talk a lot about these different demographics and these assumptions of where they're going to go. Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not
Knock. Who's there? Oh my gosh, it's Whoopi.
Okay, so was it Whoopi who said misogyny, or was it one of the other ladies on the panel? I don't know. The first one, though, the fake Republican on the panel, Alyssa whatever, she says the Latinos ended up cutting for Trump in this area, and why? It's because of the border. The border would be one reason. I think there are other reasons, too. But, of course, the knee-jerk reaction from the other ladies on The View, misogyny! It has to be misogyny. And this ties in with the other liberal excuse, which is black people voted disproportionately this year for Trump because black people are misogynistic. Latinos voted overwhelmingly for Trump, or disproportionately, I should say, for Trump, because Latinos are racist and don't like black people. But now The View is adding on to that and saying, no, but the Hispanics also, like the black people, hate women. How quickly they turn. When black voters and Hispanic voters play nice with the Democrats and they don't make too much noise and they don't voice their own opinions and they don't ever step out of line, then they're the most wonderful people in the world. They can do no wrong. They're the dreamers. They're the future of America. They're the diversity that makes our country so great. But the minute any of them, even a little bit, black men, 20% vote for Trump. Hispanics, they don't even, not even the majority vote for Trump, just 45, 46%. The minute they do that, you hate women, you're racist, you are white supremacists. How quickly? And I think that is going to be a wake-up call. This election was in many ways a wake-up call to black voters, to Hispanic voters, to others who said, wow, hold on. We've been voting in lockstep with the Democrats for years now, decades, and I don't know. They seem to have gone a little bit crazy. They're taking our votes for granted. They're not delivering. Maybe we're going to vote for Trump. I think the reaction from the Democrats to turn on them on a dime, I think that's going to compound the problem for Democrats. Black people and Hispanic people and even women, perhaps, are going to see where they really stand, which is that the left does not view them as particularly good, particularly wonderful, particularly deserving of privilege. They just view them as a political instrument to be exploited. And when the instrument doesn't work anymore, it's going to be tossed to the side. Now, speaking of women, there's a growing social media trend among feminist left-wing women who are reacting to the Trump presidency with what is called the 4B campaign to swear off men.
Because I have an IQ of 130, but I want the men in this country to know that half the female population, we're dry. We're probably going to stay dry. I'm dry as a desert, baby, and I don't want it to change. Yeah, we're not going to like you anymore. You understand that? Like, it doesn't matter if you take away abortion. Like, we'll want to have your babies even less, right? Even if you take away contraception, like, women are really good at celibacy because you guys are actually a threat to us. So we have a lot less to gain from you. So yeah, 4B all the way. Let's make some money, I guess. That's all we can do now.
It's always the eyes. The eyes always tell the story. Got those real, they're popping out of her head. And what is she saying? 4B. 4B refers to a Korean trend that took off in 2017 around the beginning of the Me Too movement, which was also contrived and astroturfed and led by some of the greatest hypocrites in the world, in Hollywood and in the professional left. 4B refers to the refusal to date men. I'm going to botch all of these Korean words, so please forgive me. Biyonye, then it's the refusal to sleep with men. Bisekyu, then it's the refusal to get married, like specifically what they call heterosexual marriage, which in years past was just called marriage, but the refusal to get married, bihon, and childbirth, refusal to have kids, bikulsan. So this lady opens up her video. This is probably the most viral of them to say, I have an IQ of 130, men, so listen to me. So because she has an IQ of 130, about a fact about which she is boasting for some reason, she must know that this whole 4B campaign is just a reenactment of the ancient Greek play Lysistrata. Lysistrata is a play from the 5th century BC. It's by Aristophanes, a comedy, one of the most famous ancient Greek comedies. And the plot of the play is that the men are always going to war, and so the women on both sides decide they're going to withhold sex until the men make peace. That's it. So that's the obvious parallel that most of these women are totally unaware of. But it occurred to me, in a way, the 4B campaign is the opposite of Lysistrata. Because the point of withholding sex from the men in Lysistrata is to have peace. But the point of withholding sex from men in the 4B campaign is to kill more babies. That's it. It's specifically about abortion. You heard her mention it there. It's not just about the Trump win. It's not just about Republicans. It's specifically about abortion. So it's kind of the opposite. There's something noble about the women withholding sex in Lysistrata. Here, they say, no, men, we will only sleep with you if you allow us to kill your kids and our kids. So I look at the 4B campaign and I say, well, if the options are women have tons of promiscuous sex outside of marriage and then murder their babies, or these women in particular just take a step back for a moment and are chaste, Is the 4B campaign kind of based? Does the B stand for based in the 4B campaign? I think perhaps it does. That's not bad. Now, some people are saying, oh, it's good. These liberal women, they are not going to date. They're not going to procreate. They're not going to get married. No, we don't want the liberal women to abstain from things like marriage and procreation and all of that. And the reason is sometimes you'll hear cynical people on the right. They'll say, no, it'll be good because then there won't be any new leftists being made. No, that's not how it works. Marriage is a conservatizing institution. Having children is a conservatizing experience. It brings you into greater connection with reality. It helps to expand your love and your charity. It makes you a fuller person. And being more in touch with reality, it makes you more conservative. So we want the women to do that. But we don't want people to just be used and abused and have casual sex for no reason whatsoever that really doesn't make anyone happy. We want people to respect themselves. And we want to encourage marriage. We want to encourage childbirth and raising children. We want to do it in the right way. So if 4B is the first step to that, you go, ladies. More power. You go, girl. More power to you. Now, speaking of procreation, you might want to check out Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks are a game changer for men who would like a little bit of extra help in the boudoir. They are a 2-in-1 prescription treatment that combines the active ingredients in Viagra and Cialis, 2 powerhouse treatments. Rose Sparks are designed to dissolve under your tongue because dissolvable treatment hits your bloodstream faster than old school pills. Rose Sparks keeps you present with your spouse instead of waiting for a pill to work. Plus, tadalafil, the active ingredient in Cialis, lasts in the system for up to 36 hours. So when the mood is right, you will be ready without another dose. Find out if prescription Rose Sparks are right for you. You can get $15 off your first order and connect with a provider at ro.co/Knowles, Knowles. Very simple to spell, ro.co/Knowles. That is ro.co/Knowles. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Only available if prescribed after an online consultation with a provider. My favorite comment yesterday is actually from Professor Jacob, and it's in a meme that he sent me. And the meme is a picture, I think it's of Kim Jong-un smoking a cigarette. And it says, "In the midst of It's So Over, I found there was, within me, an invincible, we're so back." Wow, so true. So true as a consequence of Tuesday. Speaking of women having disordered and passionate reactions to the Trump win, some women are shaving their heads in protest of the 47th president.
Just woke up this morning feeling spicy. You guys feel spicy? Because I do. All right. I don't know how to use this thing. Let's see what happens. Is this cutting off hair? I'm going to have to cut it shorter than that. Buzz it down, right? I think that this is too... it's getting hair. Let's see here. Maybe I got to cut it. Here we go. Have I given up on America? I've also given up on coloring this hair because, right? Coloring my hair, having my hair be long and luxurious, all that, being skinny, being hot, being all the things that the patriarchy wants us to be, because clearly they don't give a shit about us. And I'm talking to you too, those of you ladies who have the internalized misogyny required to do what you did. Minorities who are so scared of a woman in power that you'd rather cozy up to the white man just in case some crumbs fall off his plate so that you may eat from them. Yes, scraps. I don't know how to work this thing, but I'm on my way. I'm gonna figure it out. Let's just do some cutting. You know why? Because this is taking too long.
So here she is, the liberal white lady, lashing out at her former supposed friends, the racial minorities and the other women, because she can't say that all the women opposed Trump. Many, many women voted for Trump. Married women mostly voted for Trump, and even single women moved in his direction. So she can't say that. She says, no, you have internalized misogyny. You women, you actually hate women. You're laboring under a false consciousness. This is a term from the Marxist tradition that says that either you support the radical leftists or you've been tricked. That the only conclusion that one could possibly come to if one has working faculties of reason is to support the radical leftists. So the only explanations, as long as you're not in the oppressor class, if you're in the good class, like the women and the minorities, is you're either voting for the left or you've been duped. So she says, okay, you've been duped, women, you have internalized misogyny, you're laboring under false consciousness. And for you minorities, she's even harsher. She says, you just hate women so much. Forget about you black people. Forget about you Hispanic people. You hate women so much. Because really you're just trying to suck up to the white man, that evil, terrible man. So she's raving and ranting, and then she cuts her hair off. I've noticed this over the years, that women, when they experience a trauma, often cut their hair off. Women who get divorced, women who are going through relationship problems, women who are experiencing even more serious traumas than that will cut their hair very short. And it just seems to be a natural response to processing some kind of trauma. What makes this so preposterous is that the supposed trauma is a very popular president being reelected so that he can fix the economy and our political order. Being reelected by the majority of Americans. It doesn't seem all that traumatic. But women do this. This is a real response to trauma. So this woman is really processing a normal event as some kind of shocking trauma. Why are these women so mad? I choose that word very specifically. Sometimes you'd hear, well, look, animals get mad, people get angry. No, but mad also carries this connotation of lunacy, of madness, of craziness. And they seem a little bit crazy. Why have they been driven mad? In part, they've been driven mad by their anger. And I think they're angry because of their sadness. Anger is a response to the sadness caused by an injustice, St. Thomas Aquinas tells us. So why are they sad? Why are they angry? Why are they mad? Ultimately, it is not because the Mango Mussolini has ascended the throne. That's maybe in their fevered dreams, that's what they think. That's not really what's happening. I think they're sad and they're angry and they're mad because they're wrong. I think that's what a lot of this diatribe was about. Notice, it wasn't so she was angry that maybe you won't be able to kill as many kids in the next presidential administration, maybe, though Trump has said there won't be a federal abortion ban. But what she seems to be really angry about is not any particular policy, new migration policy, new Ukraine policy, new economic policy. She seems to be angry that she was wrong about other women and how they would vote. She was wrong about how black people would vote, how Hispanic people would vote. She was wrong about how the majority of Americans would vote. These guys were wrong about the political order. The country is not as they believed it was. And why did they believe that the country was left-wing and hated Donald Trump? But they believed that because the establishment media told them, and it was a kind of self-reinforcing cycle. And they just got it wrong. They're sad and they're angry and they're mad because their perception is not in accord with reality. And when you become divorced in your mind from reality, you start to go crazy. And you start to seem crazy. And you start to do crazy things like chopping off all your hair because you don't like the Republican Party. So the solution to that, and it's difficult, it's easier said than done. The solution to that is humility. Not this kind of false humility of shaving your hair and being really performative in your self-flagellation on TikTok. It's humility to say, I guess I got that wrong. I guess maybe my political opponents aren't all evil, because then the majority of Americans have to be evil. And even the people I said were good, like the blacks and the Hispanics and the women, maybe they would have to be evil too in large part. So, maybe I was wrong. And maybe my political priors are wrong. And maybe murdering kids isn't the be all and end all of political virtue. And maybe I need to rethink things. Maybe because the alternative to that probably sounds terrible for the left right now, to have to change their views. But the alternative is to just continue to be wrong. That's it. So you can do that. You can persist in delusion with increasing heaps and heaps of evidence that you're wrong. But if you're going to start seeming real crazy if you do that. This is why the transgender issue has become so prominent, is because it is exemplary of this precise problem of living in persistent defiance of reality in a way that becomes increasingly desperate and absurd, in a way that is undeniable. Tuesday's undeniable. Most Americans like Trump. Most Americans don't think he's Hitler. That's true across demographic groups. So you can react to that by saying, okay, I'll cool it. Maybe I'll rethink things. Or you can chop all your hair off and rant and scream on TikTok or cry on national television like Jimmy Kimmel. The choice is yours, I suppose. Now, speaking of being wrong, Cenk Uygur, he is the host of the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur has a message for his fellow Democrats. He says, don't blame the voters. Don't blame the Russians. Don't blame everyone else. Good so far. Listen to the voters. Good so far. They just sent you a huge wake-up call. Yep. They want you to go populist. If Democrats double down on loser corporate Democrats, they will keep losing elections forever. Turn around. Okay, well, hold on. He had me until the end. That's true. Voters do like populism, but I don't think that's what Cenk's talking about. I think Cenk is talking about the populism of Bernie Sanders, maybe even Elizabeth Warren, maybe even AOC, the real explicit leftists. This strikes me as a little bit revisionist history, because I was on air with Cenk Uygur when Kamala Harris picked Tim Walz as her running mate. And I said this was a big mistake for Democrats because Walz was too far to the left. He was really extreme especially on the transgender issue, but really extreme. He let Minneapolis burn to the ground. I mean, he's a radical. And Cenk said, you're right, he is a radical, and it's great that Kamala picked him.
He offered a competing vision that could actually combat the fascism that you see with Donald Trump. Just talking about fascism, talking about how bad Donald Trump is clearly not enough to get the job done. And so we have the results that we have.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Crenshaw, I spoke to President Trump this morning, just rang him on his phone. And
We've pulled the wrong clip. Cenk Uygur, though, I look rather different than that lady who was speaking. Cenk said on a panel that I was on with him on the Piers Morgan show that Walz was a really, really great candidate. He was even laughing. I said, okay, well, we'll see who's right in the end. He said, okay, well, I'm going to be laughing on Election Day because Kamala Harris leaned into her leftist bona fides. She didn't pick the more moderate Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. She picked the guy, the Minnesota guy, the real leftist. And that failed. So even the point that Cenk Uygur is making, says, these candidates, these were just corporate Democrats. No, you were saying they were left-wing candidates. You were saying they were more populist candidates. But even the distinction he's trying to draw between the loser corporate Democrats and the radicals, the populists, is a little bit of cope. The reality is that both the establishment wings of the Democrat Party and the populist wing of the Democrat Party are unpopular. And they are unpopular because both of them are divorced from the common good. They're unpopular because the corporatist establishment wing of the Democrat Party, which is now partying with the Cheneys, that wing is really just about making money and doing whatever they want and pursuing their liberal social policies and just caring about themselves. Just greedy libs. And then the radical wing of the party is divorced from the common good because they're dividing everyone up into all these little groups and trying to pit them against each other, the blacks against the whites and the men against the women and all. But this election showed actually it doesn't have to be that way. People from across all segments, racial groups, sexual groups, class groups, socioeconomic groups, they can actually all come together because what the Trump campaign was offering was a message about the common good. The common good, which is that which we hold in common, that which is good for all of us together in the state and the political community, and that which is good for us individually, all together. Good stuff. Keep listening to Cenk Uygur. Keep listening to the leftists. It's fine by me. Trump and his successors will reign for 1,000 years. Just when the libs and the first DEI presidential candidate thought their week could not get any worse, the weekend is here, and Am I Racist is streaming exclusively on DailyWire Plus. The only way you can catch Matt Walsh in the #1 documentary of the decade is with a DailyWire Plus membership. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code TRUMP for 47% off new annual memberships. New annual memberships include a Leftist Ears tumbler. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code TRUMP for 47% off new annual memberships. Our mailbag is sponsored by Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Knowles, KNWLES today. Switch to a qualifying plan. Get 1 year free of DailyWire Plus Insider. Take it away.
Hello, Michael. thank you for being you and sharing your light and your joy with us. You're my favorite pundit because I can literally feel your joy every time I listen to you. And that's quite rare, especially in the political field. So thank you for being you. I have a quick question. Have you ever considered manufacturing miniatures for your cigar company? Would love the dusk blend if you can get to it. Thanks.
What a great setup to the question, with a question that was perhaps even more delightful than the setup. I'm really, your point on joy, that's great, because it seems like you're saying that I'm the real Kamala. You know, Kamala ran on joy, but she didn't seem very joyful. You're saying I am the real Kamala Harris. Wow. Thank you. As far as the miniature cigars, funny you say that. You know, I have a cigar company, Mayflower Cigars, and we two blends, the Dawn blend, a little lighter, and the Dusk blend, a little darker, fuller bodied. And I love smaller cigars, not cigarillos, not cigarettes. I don't like any of that, not the machine-made stuff, not the short filler stuff, but I do like a smaller ring gauge, shorter size, a long filler, premium hand-rolled cigar. I do like that. Will we be coming out with any of those? I have long suspected that women prefer that kind of cigar, but I think really the old school cigar smokers prefer that size too. It's a good question. Stay tuned. That's all I'll say. Next question.
Hey, Michael. My name's AJ. First off, I wanted to thank you for staying after Liberty's Freedom Uncensored conference for a meet and greet. I know you had to be exhausted and had to get to your 2 a.m. flight, but you and I agreed that my question might be good for the mailbag, so here goes. What are your thoughts on the idea that the initial rejection by the Church of the polyphony of Palestrina is comparable to the rejection of modern worship music by some, putting aside differences in musical complexity? Appreciate your thoughts.
Really, really great question. I'll break it down a little bit for those who are not as familiar with church history and the history of music. Polyphony, when it came into the church in the 15th and 16th centuries, it was coming in after the typical liturgical use of plain chant or Gregorian chant. You know, and polyphony, you know, includes harmonies and all sorts of complex musical arrangements. However, there is a common misconception, a long-standing legend that the church reacted negatively against polyphony, against harmony, against this complex music, or that it rejected it, or that it persecuted people for using polyphony. That's not true. There have been liturgical, beautiful uses of polyphony from the very beginning. However, at the Council of Trent, what they were debating was not whether polyphony could be used in music, but whether polyphony would overshadow the liturgy, the actual words, the sacrifice of the Mass. And even more specifically, it was dealing with whether or not music that was vulgar or secular could be used or appropriated for a liturgical purpose. And so what the council came to was that this music certainly could be used in the Mass, and was rather quickly used in the Mass, but it could not overshadow the words. It could not cloud the meaning. It could not, you know, ironically, there's also another later modern, I think historically ridiculous attempt to deride traditional liturgy and Christendom at its height by saying that the people didn't understand the Mass. They couldn't read the Bible. They were not open to the message of the gospel. All revisionist history, all nonsense. But actually, the debate over polyphony was largely a debate that centered over making sure that the people could continue to hear the actual message of the music and of the Mass, which they certainly can, and they're wonderful missae cantate that sung masses that continue to be used in even the most traditionalist parishes today. This is not the same as the debate over modern worship music, which usually is terrible and comes down to sad, sappy little pop ditties that weren't even cool in the 1970s. There's a difference. There's a difference between Palestrina and some modern reject from a 70s ballad. Because there's objective beauty. So don't worry. We can feel perfectly fine about rejecting a lot of modern worship music. Some is okay, but a lot of it's very bad. And maybe we return to Palestrina. That sounds good. Next question.
Hello, Michael. Big fan of the show. I just wanted to ask you what I should do as a University of Wisconsin Stevens Point student I love college and I love the friends that I've made, but I just cannot stand all the liberal ideologies that are going on, that they are throwing down my throat. And I am a media studies major and I would like to do something in that field. However, I do not know how much longer I can stand being at this place. So if you have any advice on what to do, please give me a shout back.
Sure. The question is, do you need the degree to do the job? Or do you need the degree even to get the job? Different questions. Usually you don't need the degree to do the job. You might need the degree to get the job. That's an unfortunate misalignment of our credentialing right now, but it could be a reality. So if you need the degree to get the job, you might want to stick it out. Or you could consider transferring to a college or university that's a little less crazy. Or, I don't know, if you're working in media, often you don't really need the degree. So I think university education is good. I support liberal arts education. But the purpose of liberal arts education is not to learn a technical trade. The purpose of liberal arts education is to read dusty old books that don't have any direct, applicable, professional purpose. They will just form your character and cultivate all sorts of interests and desires and help you make sense of your freedom. That's the point of it. So if you're not getting that at this school and you're not getting the professional training that you need, that's a big if. You got to answer that for yourself. And you're dealing with a bunch of lunatic libs. I don't know. Then I'd probably do something else and save your money. However, if you are getting a proper liberal arts education anywhere, that could be useful, even if it's not directly applicable to your job. And if you need it for your credential, well, that's the way it works. You can either accept that or you can go do something else. Next question.
Hello, Michael. Greetings from Oklahoma. Love the show and all that you do for the faith in the country. Just a little about myself to set up my question. I am a 25-year-old single woman, still living in my parents' home, and have been attending the TLM at my parish here for about 10 years at this point. As I've heard you talk about many times on the show, I've been putting myself in an environment where good young men are to be found, but I've yet to be approached by anyone. I have long hoped to meet my spouse in a traditional manner, and the idea of using any sort of dating site, even a Catholic one like Catholic Match, has never appealed to me, mainly because I would feel like I am becoming the pursuer, while at the same time effectively putting myself up for sale, so to speak. But I feel like I am coming to a crossroads when it comes to moving on with my life, and so my question to you is this. Should I just keep hoping and praying, as I've been doing for so many years, that someone will eventually find me worth pursuing? Or should I give in to the pressure brought about by my own loneliness and try the Catholic Match thing, praying that the Holy Spirit will see fit to reveal His will to me through your words? Thank you, and God bless.
Okay, thank you. It's a good question. I'm sorry you're dealing with this difficulty that is so common in the modern age, which is loneliness and a confusion of the relation between the sexes. You are creating a neat dichotomy here that I'm not sure is quite so neat. You're saying, look, I want to be pursued in a traditional way. I want the man to ask me out, and I don't want to have to put myself up on social media like I'm listing a personal or I don't know, advertising myself as a commodity. So I don't want to have to do that. That's why I don't want to use the dating sites. However, I don't want to be lonely, and none of the men, even at the traditional Latin Mass parish, are coming up and pursuing me. So what do I do? And I don't know what kind of town you're in Oklahoma. It might be relatively small. The pickings might be slim. We say about dating at the traditional Latin Mass that the odds are good, but the goods are odd. But maybe the odds aren't even good, depending on how small your parish is. So I don't know. However, I don't think this dichotomy is quite so neat. Yes, you don't. There's something unusual about a woman being the one to pursue the man really aggressively, though it happens sometimes. However, when you get up in the morning, do you just sort of roll out of bed, hair all frizzy, looking drab, and just kind of run outside and go buy your cup of coffee or whatever? No. You brush your hair. Maybe you put on a little makeup. You wear a nice dress that maybe makes you look good, or maybe you think it's good. What would you call that? Is that not, in a way, pursuing men? Is that not, in a way, at least expressing that you are available? Is that not? Of course it is. All the sort of posturing, all the way that we interact, the two sexes with one another, is a way, implicitly or explicitly, to pursue the opposite sex. So there are ways to put yourself out there that are not directly courting a man, which, as you observe, would be a little bit disordered, at least. But nevertheless, open up opportunities. I don't think it's just between sitting in the pew and waiting for the fella to come up or putting yourself on a personal's website. Though you might do that too. Plenty of people have gotten married that way. But maybe it's about asking your friends and family to set you up. Maybe it's about being a little bit more intentional about how you're going to go about dating. Maybe if you have a job, going out and asking colleagues to introduce you, to set you up with someone, being a little bit more intentional without being the one directly, holding a boombox under some guy's bedroom window saying, please come date me. That would be a little odd. But you can be a little bit more intentional about it. It's okay. More than one way to skin a cat. And women are clever this way. Women are not the passive creatures that the feminists sometimes say that they are, without any agency, just pure victims of men. And they're not the passive creatures that you see sometimes in caricatures of chivalry, just there up on a pedestal waiting to be sung to or pursued. Women can be a little craftier too. As you see in Lysistrata, or in even the 4B movement, I guess. We will be talking more about the 4B movement with my friend, Liz Wheeler. We will be doing that in the next part of the show. And I hope somebody will be giving me my iPad so that I can speak not to all of the hoi polloi out there, though I love you, thank you, and YouTube and Twitter and X and everything for being here. But I will be speaking to the members of the Chem du Lachem, that is right, the DailyWire Plus subscribers who are here. Professor, please give me my iPad, thank you. By the way, do you want to show the people? I can. So, Professor had grown a little bit of a soup strainer underneath his nose. He had a big, fat, creepy crumb catcher on his upper lip, and a lot of people didn't like it, myself included, most of the time. And now the professor has a complete baby face. Look at that. Now, what do you think? In a way, I miss the stash.
I miss it too.
You liked it?
Yeah, that was hilarious.
It was definitely hilarious. The problem was, of course, when Professor Jacob accompanies me to my speeches at schools, he wasn't allowed within 300 yards of the campuses. And so that was one issue with the mustache. But also, it had the potential to become like a Tom Selleck kind of thing, maybe in 10 or 20 years. And now he's cut it off. Why'd you cut it off? Because you said I looked like a pedophile. I did. I insinuated that. I didn't say that explicitly. Okay, who's here? Mama knows the truth. Married women look like looking nice, and we don't want another man. So we have to look like hags once we're married? No, you misunderstand me. I'm pointing out you wake up, married or unmarried, you wake up, you brush your hair, you take a shower, maybe you put on a little makeup or something. For a purpose. What do you do that for? I'm not saying you're trying to cheat on your husband, but maybe you want to look pretty for your husband. I try to make myself look a little bit like an Adonis and a hunk for sweet little Elisa. And I understand. I don't have to do that much. I sort of just wake up like this. But, I try, maybe I put button up the shirt, try to put on a nice jacket so that sweet little Elisa still has that sort of feeling, from when we were dating. You do this. You want, because we want to, attract our beloved. That's a good thing. So one can be intentional about this, single or married. And, if you don't need to just wait to be a passive recipient of fate. You can go out there and cooperate with God's grace in the various circumstances in which you find yourself. Congrats, Curls. I don't know what that's in response to. Let's see. Arun says, unwoke, I would never ignore you. You're my third favorite Jew after Maimonides and Professor Jacob, and really you're tied with the professor. That's a nice thing to say. Women cleverly set themselves up to receive love, says Catherine. That is a more eloquent and, I think, precise way of saying it. Very true, Catherine. Landon Core, Michael, tell that last questioner to call me. The DW should have my number. I've applied to tons of jobs there. You've applied to tons of jobs, and now you're applying for love. I don't know. Are we allowed to give out members' phone numbers to set them up? That seems like there's some liability involved there. I don't know that I'm going to do that. Michael, I thoroughly enjoyed your election coverage on Tuesday night, says Alex. Thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate that. Harry Styles fan, Michael, I demand LDS representation or I will riot. Fair enough. Although, has a Mormon ever rioted? They're like the nicest people. They're so put together. They talk about dressing well and so I that would be an odd thing to see, an LDS riot, but who knows, maybe. Chicken Soup says, Michael, when will sweet little Elisa make a cookbook called Mag, What Was for Breakfast? That's a good question. I had a lovely breakfast. Nice single. We only had one egg left, but because of the Bidenflation and because Elisa gets the college-educated eggs, that one egg was like $47. And so I had one sunny side egg and then 2 fresh chocolate chip pancakes and a double shot of espresso. It was good. Actually, if I'm being precise, 2 single shots of espresso. I prefer the single pull. It's much better. Okay. Now, speaking of women, sweet little Elisa, very put together, serious, rational, grounded woman. Another friend of mine, serious, put together, grounded, realistic. That would be my friend, Liz Wheeler. Liz, thank you for coming on the show.
Hi, Michael. Did you really have chocolate chip pancakes for breakfast?
I did. Elisa every day makes me some kind of, maybe it's lemon ricotta pancakes, maybe it's a fresh sourdough waffle, maybe it's little muffins with my eggs. It's good. Look, she's a grounded woman.
It's a good life.
It's a good life. Some women are not living good lives, Liz. Some women are not grounded. Some women are not put together. Are you familiar with the 4B movement?
Is this the moment that I'm supposed to shave my head on air today?
This is, yeah, please don't. You have lovely hair, Liz. Don't do it. You remember about 10 years ago, women got it in their minds that it would be smart to just shave off half their head. Do you remember that thing? Yeah, they had long hair on one side and like a buzz cut on the other.
Yeah, remember that show John and Kate +8? Wasn't she like the pioneer of that? She had like that long sweeping thing and the shaved on the side.
You're telling me a mother of 8 pioneered the most feminist and unfortunate hair trend of the last quarter century?
Well, she turned out to be a feminist, so.
Did she? Well, I guess I have to catch up on that show. I was not an avid watcher. Really, the only reality show I ever really got into was The Jersey Shore, but that's because it really reminded me of my upbringing. It's a conversation for another time. For this conversation, Liz.
That sounds like a conversation that viewers would be interested in hearing.
When I was just there, little Gym Tan Laundry, beat that beat up. Yeah. That's for the summer. This is now we're heading into the winter, and these women are heading into, it would appear, a winter of the soul of sorts. If you don't mind, Liz, we're going to go through a few of these TikToks of the 4B movement, and you, as a grounded woman, can maybe give them some advice. Take it away.
I would love to.
I just woke up and I'm still processing, but I just want to issue a formal announcement to everybody in my life that I have now joined the 4B movement. That's for one. Secondly, the first question I'm asking everybody in my life from this moment forward, who did you vote for? If I get anything aside from Kamala, get the fuck out of my face. If you're not trying to hoard Plan B and misoprostol with me and start an underground abortion railroad, then I don't. Get the fuck out of my face, honestly. Oh my God, I'm tired.
Thoughts?
Well, I'd like to laugh at her because part of it's comical. The 4B movement, you probably already went over this, but the 4B movement is a radical feminist separatist movement. It calls for women to reject dating men, marrying men, having sex with men, and having babies. And it's not just a political movement. They actually want to reject men from every portion of their life. It is an anti-man movement here. So my first comment on the 4B movement is, okay, ladies, if you are trying to reject all of those things, dating and marriage and sex and babies, because you think you cannot abort your baby, we accept your terms. Those terms sound great to me. If this is what it took to get women to stop participating in hookup culture, to stop having sex with men who have no intention of commitment or love, to stop aborting their babies, this is exactly what we hope for. Aside, of course, from their side dish of anti-man here. But the larger picture here, besides sort of laughing at the comedy of the thing, is it's very sad. It's very sad to see these women so attached to abortion that they think their entire identity revolves around it, that to be who they were made to be, to achieve their potential, to be successful, to be happy, that they have to kill their unborn children in the womb. Our culture is very sick, Michael. We have a lot of work still to do.
I wonder, I like the idea that these feminists are going to be chased inadvertently, but I wonder if this is going to boomerang in a bad way, because what they're saying is we're going to deny our desires for men. We're going to deny our desires for complementarity or marriage or kids or whatever. If you didn't vote for Kamala, we're going to suppress all of our desires. And I wonder if that's healthy, because the way that I would like people to be chased, the way that I would like people to just behave normally in all realms of life is not to suppress their desires, but just to make sure their desires are ordered toward the right purpose. I think desire is good. It's good to desire members of the opposite sex, but you don't want to be married and desiring your secretary. You want to be desiring your wife. When you have a desire, if you're unmarried, you don't want to take that desire and go have a one-night stand after getting blackout drunk at the bar down the street. You want to take that desire and follow that to get married and have a good life. And then you don't want to take that desire and use it to turn off the possibility of life and having kids. You want that desire to be fulfilled in creating kids. So it's about sublimating and correcting our desires and actually following them in love, rather than what these women are doing. It seems to me the opposite of love.
Well, it is. And the word that you used, suppressing their desires, I would call it, I mean, maybe they are engaging in a suppression of their desires that's disordered, but in a sense, it's potato with self-control. When you're an unmarried person, are you suppressing your desire to go out and have sex with a lot of people, or are you exercising self-control over that desire? The end is the same. And even if it is not rooted in the same order of what is good and right and beautiful, we're not just talking about the woman involved here. She, by not engaging in promiscuous sex and not allowing a man who has no intention to commit to her and love her and marry her to impregnate her, then she's saving the life of a baby that she admits that she would abort should she become pregnant. So that, to me, is the primary thing that when I see these videos, I'm like, okay, great. We're going to save babies' lives if you abstain from promiscuous sex. But yes, like I said, I also feel sympathy for these women. I think a lot of these women have been harmed by abortion and have been harmed by men who abuse them. That's sort of the undercurrent of the problem with abortion in our culture that's been so unpopular in the last couple decades to talk about, that I have hope that as a culture, we're starting to red pill, not just politically, but there's been this big spiritual awakening. You and I were talking about this on my show last week or the week before, how a lot of young people are realizing that there's more to life than secularism, and they're turning towards oftentimes the order of the Catholic Church. And my hope is that that message can start resonating with some of these women, because a lot of them are so tied to abortion because they've had abortions themselves, abortions that have not only ended the life of their baby, but they regret them. They feel trauma, they feel grief from these abortions, and their ex-boyfriends or whoever impregnated them coerced them into doing that. And it's a very tough thing. Even though you and I can sit there and say, wow, that's so egregious, how could they do that? It's a very tough thing to overcome that mental hurdle to say, wow, I aborted my child and now I'm coming face to face with the reality of what I did. Yeah. And I think the result of that is a lot of these women become attached to abortion rather than facing the reality. And that's what we see in these videos. Right. They either repent, you get, it's not my line, but people say before you get the good news, you have to have the bad news. Either they accept the reality of what they did and then repent and receive forgiveness, or they go crazy, like a lot of the women in these videos. Okay, next video.
All I have to say is good luck getting laid. Especially in Florida, because me and my girlies are participating in the 4B movement. That's my next plan. And I'm dead serious.
I voted for Donald Trump, and I have 3 children under the age of 4. And there are many such cases. This sort of like, tee-hee-hee, good luck getting laid, tee-hee-hee. We single women, we're just going to turn it off, okay? And we're not going to give you promiscuous. And by the way, single people, even if what you're pursuing is just like, doing the deed a lot of times, you're more likely to do that within the context of marriage. People look back on their single days and they only remember the successes. They don't remember the strikeouts. They don't remember the loneliness. It's so deceptive, the whole thing. And even if you do have a one night stand or something, it's so unfulfilling. It degrades the person regardless of even if you're the biggest lib in the world. That woman like, tee-hee-hee, yeah, good luck getting laid. Yeah. Hey, actually, you know what? I'm good, man. Maybe, how about you take a break? Statistics. Say it again. Look at the statistics and the studies. And I don't mean to be graphic here. These women are putting it all out there, if you will, or not. And I think that we should look at, I read a study this was probably early in the summer when we were doing an episode about Andrew Tate and the hookup culture and all of that. And if you look at the satisfaction rate of hookups versus sex within the context of marriage, it was something like men only orgasm 60% of the time during a hookup, and women only orgasm 10% of the time during a hookup with an otherwise stranger outside of the context of marriage. And I thought, no one ever talks about that, probably because it's uncomfortable and no one wants to say it.
But no one ever talks about that when they're talking about how wonderful the hookup culture is compared to the statistics about sex within the context of marriage. Women specifically, men too, but women's sexual experiences obviously are more intertwined with their emotional security. Women report being the most satisfied with sex when they are married, when they are in love, when they are having sex with their husband. And yet these women are, I mean, in my opinion, they're missing out.
I think they're probably missing out. And so maybe this underscores your point, Liz. Maybe these women do need a reset. Maybe they do need a little 4B, a little sabbatical from the hookup culture. Maybe that'll reset them a little bit, and that feminism will end up being an instrument to having an actual good life. Next one.
I'm going to be honest, I was very blindsided by the results this morning. I've decided that cigarettes don't count today, and I honestly might go get a tattoo. But I also have decided that for the next 4 years, I am going to abstain from schmex with men. And funny enough, I actually just broke up with my boyfriend a handful of days before the election. As a woman, my bodily autonomy matters, and this is my way to exercise sovereignty over that. Delete your dating apps, because we can come together in community, and if you need somebody to cuddle or hold your hand or give you a kiss, I bet you one of your girlfriends would do it, okay? And you don't even have to really be gay, okay? It's okay to have a lot of platonic love for the next 4 years. I think we can look to South Korea and the 4B movement as a point of inspiration for us.
Her advice is to just make women into lesbians. And she knows it, so she says, and you don't even really have to be a lesbian to kiss your girlfriends and cuddle, but yeah.
Just kind of gay.
Just kind of. Just a little.
I mean, her ex-boyfriend, fella, you dodged a bullet, with all due respect to her. This was the interesting part of the 4B movement, too, is apparently these feminists, and they're pretty young. That girl looks pretty young to me. I don't know exactly how old she is, but it's not like these are older millennials that are talking about. These are Gen Zers. They say that this is going to cause a sharp population decline because they're going to refuse to have children. And I'm thinking, who among these women even has a child to begin with? Like, these are not the women that are procreating, that are raising families, that are rearing the next generation of leaders in our country. I don't think the threat of population decline is a particularly risky one from them.
Also, I think we're just reversing causality here. The way all of this is being reported is that the women are really angry and sad and mad because Trump got elected. And I think actually that the women are just angry and sad and mad. And then Trump got elected, and they're pretending that's the cause of it. But I think it's no coincidence here. This woman who's really sad, and she says, I'm going to smoke cigarettes now, even though I quit, and I'm going to go get a tattoo, and who knows, she's probably going to cut off her hair or do whatever. And I'm going to do that because Trump got elected, because the guy who was already president got elected, and he's going to cut taxes a little bit. And also totally unrelated, my boyfriend broke up with me a few days ago. But it totally has nothing to do with I'm not really sad about that. And you think like, no, girls, there's that study that came out of Yale in 2008, so it's a little old now. It's probably the situation's gotten even worse. Women have become less happy over the past 50 years, both in objective terms and relative to men. In terms of their self-reported happiness, it has plummeted. And now huge swaths of women are on depression pills all the time. Women in their middle age, women in their teenage years. They're constantly popping pills because of how sad they are, how unhappy they have become since, coincidentally, feminism hit the national scene. And so they're trying to come up with all sorts of explanations for their unhappiness. I'm unhappy because of the patriarchy. I'm unhappy because of systemic racism. I'm unhappy because the Mango Mussolini ascended the throne again, or whatever it is. But maybe they're just sort of unhappy because of how they're living their lives. And if they changed how they're living their lives, maybe they get a little happier.
Well, this is one of the reasons that I feel sympathetic towards these women, why I will gently laugh at them because some of it's just funny, but also I'm not going to ridicule and mock them on a deeper level because they're also victims. They have fallen prey to what's now 50, 60 years of this feminist narrative that's telling women to stop being women. It's telling women to try to do what men do, to try to think like men think, to try to act like men act, to try to speak like men speak. And it's constantly telling women, because you are the weaker sex, you are going to be taken advantage of, you are going to be oppressed, you are going to be controlled by the patriarchy. And to reach your full potential, suppress that desire to be a wife, suppress that desire to be feminine, suppress that desire to have children, suppress that desire to nurture those children at home. Your full potential is reached when you go cash a paycheck. That's where your true value is. And generations of women have fallen prey to that because the societal pressure is incredible. But the result of that is exactly what you just said. I mean, I'm speaking to a group of young women tonight, and this is partially what my message to them is. You matter as a woman. Your womanhood matters. And to know what that means when I say your womanhood matters, you have to think not just what am I supposed to do in my life, but who am I? And part of who you are a woman. You are not a person who happens to be a woman. You are woman. And that matters. And I think our society, unfortunately, is reaping the sad results of when womanhood is desecrated at the very core.
Why do you think women moved more in Trump's direction this time? Not just the married women who vote Republican, but even the unmarried women and even specifically younger women who we're told vote 100% in lockstep with the libs. Why did they move more in Trump's direction this time over last time?
Because women, regardless of their age, regardless of their situation in life, have to fill up their car with gas, have to buy groceries, have to pay rent, have to pay electricity bills, understand that we could be sent to war thanks to the feminists, just the same as our husbands and fathers and brothers and sons, and that Kamala Harris has brought us to the brink of war in Ukraine. And at the root, I mean, these radical feminists are, of course, on the fringe, these TikToks that we've watched, but most women don't hate men. Most women want to love men. Most women want to honor and respect a husband and want to be in full communion with their spouse, a man. That is a natural desire that all women have. So we're not naturally bred to be anti-man. We're not naturally bred to have this contention. It's the result of original sin, you could say. You can look back in Genesis and see that there's going to be conflict between the sexes, but that wasn't the original intention. That's not how we were made. And I don't know. It shows. It shows.
It does. It does, because that sometimes, in my experience with women, whom I really love very much, much more than the feminists do, I think, the women will say they want one thing, but act as though they want something else. I think this, and men do this to some degree too, but I've noticed this with women. So the women will say, we want a female president, and we want a man. We want a president like Kamala Harris, and we want a man like Tim Walz. We want a man like Doug Emhoff. We want a man like Pete Buttigieg. But
do we?
They don't. They don't. They never do. They might spout all that, but if the girls are in college and they have the choice between dating that really nice, liberal, sensitive man who wears the onesie pajama, who sips hot cocoa and talks to your uncle about Obamacare, or the quarterback on the football team, 100 out of 100 times they're going for the quarterback. So there's obviously a chasm between what people are telling themselves and what they actually feel and desire.
Yes, because there's incredible social stigma. If a young woman who is a smart young woman who did well in school, who is socially charismatic, who is fit, if she is just like an all-around look at that girl type of girl, and she says, actually, guys, what I want the most is to get married. I'm hoping to meet the one. I'm hoping to fall in love. I'm hoping to be a bride. I'm hoping to pledge my life to this man. I'm hoping to have his children. I'm hoping to make a home for him, to be the heart of his household, to raise these babies, maybe to homeschool them. That's what I want in life. You would not believe the amount of social stigma that comes with that. And it's again, I'm speaking to young women tonight about this very topic, and it's sad that I even have to give them permission to allow themselves to want that versus, which STEM field would you like to succeed in? Because we now have a lot of token opportunities for you as a woman. Listen, I obviously do work outside of the home. You know this. We're friends outside of just being on each other's shows. We've worked together for a long time, but we are also personal friends. You know that I prioritize my family first, my children
100%.
first, that I've turned down a lot of work opportunities, and I always will, because I am going to be present to my children, because that's what matters the most.
I don't want to tell tales out of school or anything, but when you do go on the road, you almost always bring your family with you.
Always. My children are always with me. I've never gone on a trip overnight before without taking my children with me.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Because
which is obviously
they need the presence of a mother.
Right. That is a good thing to do. It is something that you desire to do. It's a recognition.
Yes.
When I go on the road, I don't take my kids with me, because you know what? My little kids, they prefer being with mommy a lot of the time than with daddy, because men and women are different. Mothers and fathers bring different things to the table. And everyone knows that intuitively. When you were saying earlier, Liz, about the social stigma that all of this carries, I thought back to Harrison Butker's speech at Benedictine College, where he said, I think a lot of you, some of you are going to want to do careers, some of you women out there. But I think regardless of career or no career, most of you are going to want to be mothers and wives. And he was lambasted by the feminist leftist media. The women in the audience applauded. The women in the audience were cheering. They obviously agreed with Harrison. Now, before I let you go, Liz, we actually have to circle all the way back, because this conversation, it's become too deep, too fluent, too serious. Which was your favorite TikTok?
Oh, my favorite TikTok is the girl that was like, with her nails. That was the first, the long blonde hair. That was the first video of the 4B movement that I saw. And I thought, oh girl, my first reaction was, your terms are acceptable. This is a good first step, even if your motivation is not correct. It's also just something to me that these girls brag about being hoes. Like, come on, girl.
At least, keep quiet about things.
Have a little dignity.
My favorite is the last one, the girl at the end who she says, so angry. And then she admits, she goes, we're going to smoke cigarettes and get a tattoo today. She's admitting people fall into vices and sins. They do it when they're stressed or anxious or tired. But then the thing that sealed it for me, and again, I'm not saying this is my favorite because of the pain she's experiencing. It's just so explanatory. She says, and actually, coincidentally, my boyfriend and I broke up a few days ago. That has nothing to do with why I'm so mad right now. And I thought, like, oh, girl, like just play that tape back to yourself. And
here's my question. Do people get tattoos like as a stress relief? Like, do they just go out and act out and be like, my boyfriend broke up with me, I'm going to get a tattoo. I feel like sad today. Let me get some more ink. Do people do that?
I'm pretty sure, I don't have any scientific studies on this. I'm pretty sure most teenage girls get their first tattoo specifically because they're having a fight with their father. I think that's maybe not 100% of the time, but at least 97%. Liz, I have to leave it there. Wonderful to see you. As always, thank you for helping to guide these women of the 4B movement.
Thanks, Michael.
See you next time. All right, let's get a few here. Yes, tattoos are a release, says someone whose name is in Hebrew, so I can't read it. I should read Hebrew. I should read ancient Greek. I should read Latin better than I do, and I don't, and that's a pity. But once my kids are like properly being homeschooled, I actually probably will have the opportunity to get the education that I did not have in public school or even in a fancy university. Question in the mailbag from Donnie. Hey, Michael, has Donald Trump officially beaten more women than Doug Emhoff? Okay, come on. There was a Babylon Bee headline, Trump beats another woman. So Trump has beaten 2 women, and Doug Emhoff, I was talking to Megyn Kelly the other night. Megyn Kelly said a guy who would raise his hand and smack a woman generally doesn't just do it once. So again, these are all just accusations, but they seem kind of credible. And so probably the answer, at least what Megyn Kelly was insinuating, is the answer would be no. But Trump has beaten the first 2 women presidents, the former future first women presidents. From Nicholas. Michael, longtime listener to your show, appreciate your insights. When I was a kid, my church was heavily politicized. Our priest condemned anyone that was not going to vote for Obama. My family has always been conservative. As an adult, my wife and I have settled on non-denominational Christianity. Everywhere I go, I find politics invading religion beyond discussions on abortion or human rights, except for in my non-denominational Christianity. My question to you is, does politics belong in a church? If not, is there a way to find parishes with no political leanings? If not, should we return to Catholicism? Thank you for your time. Well, I think you will know, as a mackerel snapper myself, that I would encourage you and everyone to come on over, swim the Tiber to the Catholic Church. But you raise this point. You say, okay, right now you're in a non-denominational Protestant church, and you like that they don't talk about politics. That's a problem. That was going to be a problem this election cycle. Evangelical, non-denominational Protestants had, for a really long time, been the backbone of the GOP strategy. They were rock-ribbed. Many self-identifying Catholics, people who don't practice the faith, who've fallen away, who deny the doctrines and the dogmas, they would split. They would, half the Catholics basically were conservative, and half the Catholics, self-identified Catholics, would vote for leftists, even contrary to church teaching. But the evangelicals have been really strong until recently. They started to crack a little bit and go a little bit lib. And I think part of it is what you're talking about, which is that they say, well, we don't want to get involved in politics. That's not for us. What do I care who rules me so long as he doesn't make me sin? There's been a strain of that for some time. However, ours is an incarnational faith. Okay, we believe, if you're a Christian, you believe that God takes on flesh and dwells among us. Okay, so you believe that faith looks like something, that it takes place in history in the fullness of time. And you believe that we're impelled to do things. Sometimes there's a debate between evangelical Protestants and Catholics over the nature of justification, and it's usually just misunderstood. The evangelical Protestants will say that justification is by faith alone, which is faith alone is a phrase that appears only once in the New Testament where it's condemned. but they'll say it's by faith alone, and even sometimes Catholics will say we believe justification is by faith and works, which is not actually a Catholic teaching, and it leads to all sorts of misunderstandings. Really what it comes down to, I think, and this is not an original idea, is that we're just using justification in different ways. So the Protestants are using justification to mean the way that we have sin wiped away and become righteous in the eyes of God. And they're saying you can't earn your salvation, which is obviously true. The notion that you can earn your salvation is an ancient heresy called Pelagianism, which was condemned by the church many, many years ago. But when Catholics talk about justification, we're talking about a process that occurs throughout man's life that involves sanctification, that involves growing in virtue, that involves growing in holiness. And in that, there is work that occurs because, as James tells us, faith without works is dead. That faith looks like something in the world that, we don't earn our salvation. God does everything. We do. God gives it to us through his grace. But we are called to cooperate with God's grace. And this is all a long way of saying this theological disagreement or misunderstanding does play a role in the question that you're asking, because it means that we are called to do things in the world. We are called, thanks to the grace that we've received and in faith, we are called to actually do things. So when you see two candidates on a ballot, one wants to kill all the babies up until the moment of birth, one is the most pro-life president we've ever had, you have an obligation to vote for the pro-life candidate. It's not, you don't run to the hills, you don't say, oh, but he's so yucky, I don't like his ties or something. You have an obligation to live out your life of faith in time and space, because you are an incarnate creature and yours is an incarnate faith. An incarnational faith. So obviously incarnational, that God becomes man and takes on flesh and dwells among us. Speaking of mackerel snappers, I am joined by my fellow papist. That would be Sheamus Coughlin of Freedom Tunes fame, of Timcast IRL fame. Sheamus, thank you.
And also of Michael Knowles Show fame. Let's not leave that out.
Last but not least, of Michael Knowles Show fame.
Yeah, anytime I walk down the street, people stop me. You're the guy who did Yes, No on Michael Knowles' show. I'm like, yeah, that's me. It's me. Stand back
please,
a little
paparazzi.
bit. Okay?
No, please stop asking me for
crowding me. Exactly. Yeah. Calm down. By the way, I appreciate the explanation you just gave. Obviously, there's differences between the Catholic and Protestant view of justification, but I think so often we talk past each other on what that actually means. And fortunately, there's this great book, the Bible, which is basically, for those who don't know, a book that Christians have so that they can memorize specific verses to own other denominations, and then just have those.
That's the point of it, right? Of course.
No, listen, we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. And which it's not a bad thing to consult scripture for apologetics, but we're all guilty of just like having those verses that we always go back to and then rattle off as if we have the whole thing memorized.
There's one line that I often go back to from scripture, from the Old Testament, and I fear that I could be misinterpreted and people think I'm being glib or something. I'm really not treating scripture in any glib way, but it's Leviticus 17:7. And the verse is, you shall no longer sacrifice your sacrifices to goat demons after whom you whore. And it's an evocative verse and a provocative verse. And so that's why, there is something, I like the bluntness of it, but it's also so real. It so resonates today because often in our popular culture, you will see actual goat demons and people literally whoring after them. And you just think like, wow, the basics of human nature don't really change over time, and the basics of temptation don't really change. And maybe the Bible has something to tell you. Now, Sheamus, you know why you're here.
Yeah, I mean, there needed to be some eye candy on this show.
That was it. There was here. You are here as a thirst trap for the audience. You are also here to help me ascertain the fake headline amid all of the real headlines that the producers have found, because this is Fake Headline Friday.
So, Michael, I actually play this game every day of the week.
Say it again.
So I actually play this game every day of the week, not just Friday, and all of them are fake. They're all fake all the time.
Because you find your headlines in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and
Yes, exactly.
You make a good. That's a deep undercutting of the entire premise of this segment, actually. But I think you're right.
I'm like actually surprised you found a real one.
Yeah. So I remind the audience, you don't say that one. You don't say number one, number two. You have to say the whole headline because the chat's a little bit slow. Sheamus, first one up. Donald Trump, the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler. As another election years before us, we see the reemergence of Donald Trump as a presidential candidate. It's the first one.
That's absolutely a real headline. That's a real headline.
It is. It has to be. Joe Biden captured biting babies at White House Halloween party. Internet feels it's gross.
No, I saw that one, but to his credit, and I think the media needs to defend him more on this, that baby was dressed as a chicken and he could have been confused.
He certainly could have, like a tasty little chicken. And he went right for the leg.
I just want to say it is no longer the case that Americans can say we don't have a president who has bitten babies on camera.
I mean, he's historic. He's going down in history. Can't take it anymore. Woman who married herself posted about divorce within 24 hours. Her post prompted discussion. I'm like, okay, that's.
I'm leaning real. I'm leaning real.
Real, like it's a real satire headline. Like I could see that as an Onion or a Babylon.
Listen, reality is stranger than fiction, man. I have to hear the others before. Am I able to hear the others before I narrow down and give an answer? Or do I have to give it immediately?
No. You can hear it. There's one more. I'm going to put that one in the maybe pile. Oh no, there are two more. Harris supporter burns down her own house in protest of Trump win, sets local park on fire. In Shelburne, Vermont, a woman was placed under arrest Wednesday night after.
I actually think that the woman marrying herself sounds like a more real headline, because what liberals do is they go into poor neighborhoods and burn down people's businesses, not their own homes.
That's a good point. And also, there's not a comma after VT in Vermont. So, okay, I'm also putting that in the maybe pile.
And it doesn't say mostly peaceful or anything like that.
Right. So. How justified they were. Teachers seized disco equipment from 12-year-old boy who hosted rave in school toilets.
That's true. That's absolutely true. That I promise you that one's true. That has to be true.
The teachers at St. Anthony's Catholic College in... Is it but would it be a... 12-year-old wouldn't be in college, but do they mean college in the European sense, like a high school or a lower school?
Yeah. To me, this one does not sound the least real of the rest.
You think that one's fake? Okay, so all right, I'm narrowing it down to these three: the woman who divorced herself, which you say is real; the Harris supporter burns her house down, which you say is fake; and the teacher seizes disco equipment from a 12-year-old boy. What's your take?
I think that the woman burning down her house in the local park is the fake one. I think the rest are real.
I'm still torn. Divorce, the toilets. But what's getting me is not even just your point is good that the libs prefer to burn down minority businesses in Chicago. But I always look for grammar and punctuation, and I think there should be a comma after Vermont, and there isn't, which makes me think that Professor Jacob wrote this.
You sound like a White House representative. There was an apostrophe there.
That's true. Wow, I sound like a Biden White House representative.
Yeah, exactly.
All hinges on a comma.
False based on the grammar.
Okay, let's go.
You won.
We did it. We got
That's unfair.
We got it. No, you got it too.
We both got it.
I think this was the one we both got it. This was the one you said was fake, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay, so we got it. So then the question is, the woman divorced herself? Yeah, she did.
Sounds about right.
Is that New York Post or something? Looks kind of tabloid.
Well, listen,
she is.
Do you think the kind of person who does that type of narcissistic thing is going to be easy to stay married to? Like, she threw a wedding for herself.
A great point. She probably, how long did it, 24 hours? Yeah. In a way, I'm surprised it lasted that long.
I hope she can get the annulment and remarry.
But yeah, how does that work with the bishop? I don't know. Is that covered in canon law? This also, the college thing?
What are her alimony payments?
This was the UK. It was. So it was college. Look at that little kid. Look at that little DJ kid. That's Sheamus. You've done very well. And
Thank
producers, I'm just going to blame it on Professor Jacob. You did not do well with your commas and your punctuation. Mr. Coughlin, first of all, everyone needs to go. Sheamus has had cartoons coming out constantly during election week. So you got to go to Freedom Tunes, and you have to see Sheamus, of course, on Timcast. But most importantly, you've got to see him on the Michael Knowles Show. That's what the paparazzi come up to talk to him about. Sheamus?
That's true. Everyone always mentions it to me. My career has peaked. It peaked in that moment. But yeah, definitely check out Freedom Tunes first and foremost. If you want to see my more obscure, lesser known work, go over to Freedom Tunes, see some of the cartoons that I make. I think you guys will really enjoy those. We're creating media and entertaining content. I think punditry is great. I love talking about this stuff, but obviously you guys at the Daily Wire also know what the conservative movement needs to be doing is create compelling media, and we've been doing that for years now. I think our product is fantastic. People love it. We get a lot of shares, hundreds of thousands of views per video. So go over there, subscribe, and if you want to help us make more, you can become a member at freedomtunes.com. You'll be funding job creation for non-woke, non-leftist artists who would have to keep their mouths shut about their opinions at a normal studio in order to stay employed. So it's good work, and it helps us build up the culture.
And they're just phenomenal. They're just great.
They've
been bangers for years. They've been terrific, and they only seem to get better. Sheamus, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Now, we're waiting on Mr. Shapiro. You know who else we're waiting on, though, is Dave McCormick, because the race was called. Bob Casey, the sitting Democrat senator in Pennsylvania, to my knowledge, at least before this show, had not conceded. And we were waiting on a news conference that McCormick was going to hold in Pittsburgh. Has the conference taken place yet? Do we have any update on Pennsylvania? No, of course not, because my producers are sitting in the control room making grammatical errors with their commas. Any updates? Bueller? No? Okay.
We're trying to get Sheamus out of this control room, all right? Give me a second.
That's going to be tough. That's going to take you hours. Ravens Asylum, 1 Key 17. Dante's the inventor of the Italian language. It's a little overstated, but he did have a big effect on it. Though, given Dante's view of language, actually, he wouldn't call himself an inventor. He doesn't think language is the kind of thing that can be invented. He set out to create his own perfect language in De Vulgari Eloquentia, or to arrive at the rules that would get you to a perfect language, kind of like medieval Esperanto. But then he gave up on that project. He actually kind of corrects it in the Divine Comedy. But I'm being pedantic. In large part, he is responsible for the language that is spoken as Italian today. JJ Triff, get him on DW Plus. I'm tired of memberships. That's a good idea. That'd be pretty fun, actually.
Dave McCormick has not done a speech yet, but he plans to today.
All right, it's happening at some point today. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen during Ben's show. Joshua Stevens 8978 says, everyone needs to unsubscribe from Freedom Tunes. Yeah, that's right. Show that, Sheamus. You get him. I've been bugging Daily Wire forever to have a Freedom Tunes show better than Family Guy, says Tyler H. Yeah, Sheamus's work is just phenomenal. If you are not subscribed, you certainly should. Freedom Tunes is great. Love the work. No homo, says Flying Mayan. I vote for disco. Yeah, you guys, you would have gotten that wrong. My work computer has Freedom Tunes blocked, says Will Wall. Where do you work? What kind of joyless office do you work at that is blocking the work of Freedom Tunes? Is Carrie Lake going to pull it out, says Nova Sordo fan? Maybe. Maybe she will. We'll see. I mean, it's taking forever for the votes to be counted in Arizona. It took a long time in Nevada, too, and I hope there will be some kind of challenge from Sam Brown's campaign. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the latest numbers. Sniper, look up Thanksgiving with Ben Shapiro. That was a particularly good one. Threat to democracy, of course, says the Senate. I'm not sure quite what that refers to, but I'm sure it's correct. It isn't arson to burn down your own house, says Sisu. Although it could be insurance fraud, right? Assuming you have homeowners insurance. The other day I saw Winnie Cooper and the Mini driver driving a Mini Cooper. Although it was lowercase Mini driver, but it should say, the other day I saw Winnie Cooper and Mini driver driving a Mini Cooper. That's a good, I like that. That's a real tongue twister. A little dated, though. I'm not sure how many people remember Winnie Cooper and Mini driver these days. Love Sheamus. Voted for Dave McCormick. The AP called it for him and Perry in Congress, but their competitors did not concede, says Kekrov. Yeah, to my mind, Bob Casey has not yet conceded. We'll see, though. I guess he's an insurrectionist. He's denying the results of the election. We need more iPads, says Conservative Vote Family. Did the show cover what happened to Sam Brown, says Catherine. Well, we're still waiting to see what happened to Sam Brown. I mean, the race, I believe, has been called for Jackie Rosen, but it was real tight. There were still votes to be counted, so we'll see how that goes. I hosted Sam Brown on my show. I know Mr. Shapiro campaigned for Sam Brown out there in Nevada. It was one race a lot of us were really hoping would pull out for the Republicans, but it looks like it will not. I guess that might remain to be seen. I don't know. Let's ask Ben himself. Ben, what's going on in Nevada?
So obviously the race is really close. Last time I checked, it was about a 12,000 vote margin in wow. Nevada. There were some late dumps always from Clark County, I believe is what happened there. I think it's going to go to recount. I think there'll be some legal challenges in that particular race. It's going to be a little while until we know exactly who wins that race. Meanwhile, the election denial over in Pennsylvania continues, where Bob Casey refuses to just acknowledge that he lost to Dave McCormick, even though that race has been called with a larger margin than the races that were called in Michigan against Mike Rogers and Wisconsin against Eric Hovde. Right? Both of those races were within like 20,000 votes. McCormick's up 30-some thousand votes, and all the areas that are coming in are ruby red. So that election is over, but Bob Casey refuses to acknowledge it. So, in the end, you're looking at a minimum of 53 Republican seats. Maybe you get Sam Brown. Maybe Carrie Lake somehow pulls it out, although I think she's down like 150,000 votes right now in Arizona. 76% of the vote is counted over there. So, that would be a bit of a surprise, obviously. But, that's a big night for Republicans, considering they were looking at a maximum originally of maybe 51. So, listen, the winning has not yet stopped. Susie Wiles, as chief of staff, is a win. I mean, it means that responsible people are indeed around President Trump, as you would expect. He actually wants to succeed this term. He doesn't just want to meme. He would like to have an administration filled with people who are going to actually do things. I don't know, the optimism, it's an uncomfortable feeling for me, Michael.
It just keeps happening, though.
You take some Pepto-Bismol or something.
I just have to wonder, though, when is Trump going to start surrounding himself with strong, intelligent women? This guy, this misogynist, he just refuses, other than that time that his first campaign was won by the first female ever to run a successful presidential campaign. And then after that, the second campaign actually was won by another strong, intelligent woman who's now the White House chief of staff, to say nothing of the dozens and dozens of other strong women and intelligent women around him. I don't know. He's a confounding figure to those lists.
It's also upsetting. I mean, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average continuing to pile up wins, I was informed by all of the great economists that inflation and stagnation were on their way. Mm-hmm. And then it turns out that the markets totally disagree. Well, Michael, we're going into the weekend in a good mood. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. I still have to broadcast, so get the hell out of here, and I'm going to start my show.
See you later.
All righty, folks. After an excellent week, why not spend the weekend watching the left squirm just a little bit more? Matt Walsh's Am I Racist?, the #1 documentary of the decade, is streaming exclusively at DailyWire Plus. Not a member yet? Head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Trump for 47% off your new annual membership. So in just a little while, we're going to be joined by the brand new senator from the state of Montana, Tim Sheehy. I had the privilege of joining him on the campaign trail during the campaign. That dude is amazing. He's just terrific. We're going to have him on in a little while, but let's begin with more winning, because let's be real about, again, I am unaccustomed to this level of optimism. It's giving me a bit of indigestion. I got to be honest with you. Maybe it's the lack of sleep. Maybe it's the fact that I could only eat vegan food when I was in Tennessee. But whatever the rationale, maybe Pepto-Bismol fixes the optimism. I don't know what the story is. Bottom line is, I'm a little optimistic because President Trump keeps making good decisions. It's almost as though all the myths that we were told about how Donald Trump was going to come into office and then immediately staff up complete idiots around himself, it's almost as though those were untrue. And we were told that by the most intelligent people. After all, Donald Trump had fired people like General James Mattis. After all, Donald Trump had been at odds with so many members of his prior administration, there would be no one left. He would be forced to dip into the bottom of the barrel. And thus far, I see precisely zero evidence that that is indeed the case. The people who are apparently doing the staffing, on a wide variety of issues, include people like the Vice President of the United States elect J.D. Vance. Don Jr. is on that team. Eric Trump is on that team. You also have a bunch of Trump world insiders like Susie Wiles, like people like Brian Hook is involved in the foreign policy team. In other words, the people who are going to go into the Trump administration are not going to be jokers. They're going to be very serious people with a very serious portfolio. As mentioned, Donald Trump late yesterday announced that he would be tapping the campaign co-manager Susie Wiles as the White House chief of staff. Susie Wiles is a very serious person. She's well respected on all sides of the political spectrum inside the Republican Party. Jeb Bush has endorsed, everyone from Jeb Bush all the way to Donald Trump has endorsed Susie Wiles as chief of staff. She's a very serious politico. She obviously worked not only with Trump, but with Rick Scott down here when he was governor of Florida, with Governor DeSantis, when he was running for governor of Florida. Then she went back into the Trump campaign. She is wily, she is savvy, and she is knife sharp. I mean, she is really a solid political fighter. According to the Wall Street Journal, Susie Wiles, who led President Trump's presidential run, will become his White House chief of staff when he retakes the presidency next year, the campaign said on Thursday, making her the first woman to hold that role in American history. Remember that time when he wouldn't surround himself with strong women, according to Mark Cuban? Yeah, I feel like she's a woman. I don't know. Just going to put that out there. Trump said in a statement, Susie Wiles just helped me achieve one of the greatest political victories in American history and was an integral part of both my 2016 and 2020 successful campaigns. Susie is tough, smart, innovative, and universally admired and respected. Susie will continue to work tirelessly to make America great again. It is a well-deserved honor to have Susie as the first ever female chief of staff in U.S. history. I have no doubt she will make our country proud. Now, again, she keeps her cards real close to the vest. She's incredibly savvy, and she is not the type of person who is going to take kindly to people who do not have Team Trump's best interests at heart. So that is an excellent pick by President Trump. Again, she's well respected on pretty much every side of the Republican political spectrum. Now, the question as to how she negotiates in Congress, that one is still open. Usually the chief of staff has a lot of congressional negotiations. The good news for her is that while she doesn't have tons of experience at doing that, because again, she was campaign manager in 2016 and 2020 in part, and she didn't really involve herself in legislative affairs, she will be negotiating with Mike Johnson in the House. In the Senate leadership battle is still wide open at this point. There's a lot of speculation about who is going to take over as the Senate majority leader because Mitch McConnell has announced he's going to step down. There's some rumors that Rick Scott, for example, is trying to run for it. There's more than rumors he does want the Senate majority leadership position. There's some members of the base who are very hot on Rick Scott, so he's a possibility. John Thune is a very solid possibility. Most of the more established members of the U.S. Senate are probably going to back Thune or John Cornyn. Honestly, any of those people will be perfectly capable of negotiating with President Trump and will do a fine job in that role. Okay. Meanwhile, President-elect Trump and his senior advisors are privately assembling short lists of candidates for top jobs in the incoming administration. Apparently, Trump's transition team, according to the Wall Street Journal, is being led by co-chair Howard Lutnick, who is, of course, involved in the campaign. He's overseeing personnel. He's put together spreadsheets with names for the former president to consider. Among the people who are being considered, National Security Advisor, the names that are coming up are Rick Grinnell. We all know him, obviously. He was Trump's former ambassador to Germany and acting director of national intelligence. Rick would do an amazing job in that role. Other potential candidates include Keith Kellogg, an octogenarian retired 3-star Army general and former NSA to Vice President Mike Pence, former Defense Department official Elbridge Colby, and Robert O'Brien, who was the last NSA under Donald Trump. Some of the people mentioned for Treasury Secretary include Scott Bessent, Keyscore Group founder, as well as billionaire investor John Paulson. Secretary of State, a few of the possibilities mentioned are Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee, as well as Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. Both of those would be excellent picks. Other potential candidates include O'Brien, Grinnell, and former senior State Department official Brian Hook, who is largely seen as the person compiling lists on who precisely should go into the foreign policy establishment. We'll get to Brian Hook in just a moment because he's been speaking publicly about what the administration's Iran policy is, and it is already bearing fruit. They haven't even taken office yet, and action is already happening to bring down conflict in the Middle East. As far as Secretary of Defense, some names that have been thrown out. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Trump did give him a shout out, as you'll recall, Wednesday morning in his victory speech in Florida. Also, Republican Representative John Ratcliffe, who has served as Trump's DNI, is being put forward as a possible DOD head or CIA head. Mike Waltz, a congressman from Florida. He also is being considered as a possible DOD leader. Homeland Security, we're hearing Chad Wolf, who'd be great. We're hearing Tom Homan, who'd be great. The bottom line is all of these names are good. Legitimately, all of these names would be not just acceptable, but excellent. And the markets are picking up on this. Okay, Washington is open for business, as Axios puts it. Mark Andreessen, an investor who backed President Trump in this race, he tweeted out this morning that he believes that we are going to be seeing unprecedented economic growth. He says, quote, America is in an economic coiled spring. We should be growing at least 4% annually, ideally 6 to 8%. Growth has been brutally suppressed since before I was born. There's so much to build. The payoff for all Americans will be incredible. That is the mood in the business community. As Axios reports, buckle up. President-elect Trump plans fast action on a business-friendly agenda of tax cuts, deregulation, and expanded energy production, his advisors tell us. By the way, all of this stuff does have a downward effect on inflation, because when you have more productivity, that means more supply, and that then keeps up with demand, and then the prices drop. Deregulation means more investment. It means economic growth. It means more innovation. According to Axios, Trump plans to load his White House and cabinet with business and tech-friendly executives and stretch the powers of the presidency to force quick changes. Behind the scenes, Trump advisors believe they wasted early opportunities to grow the economy in his first term because they didn't know how to staff. See, this is the nice thing. Trump term 2, they know exactly who they have to fire. Trump is going to take office with a triumvirate. He'll have the House. He'll have the Senate. He's going to fill his top ranks with actual business leaders. The courts are largely going to support him. The people picking staff include Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, David Sachs, and Joe Lonsdale. My goodness, what a team that's going to be. You want to talk about growing the economy? You want to talk about a productivity explosion? You want to talk about people who know how to build businesses and how markets work? You're not going to do better than that group of people. Honestly, they're all great. Meanwhile, the other power players are Howard Lutnick, chairman and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and Linda McMahon, who headed the Small Business Administration during Trump's first term. You're watching a bunch of CEOs come out basically celebrating Trump's win. Jeff Bezos congratulated him, obviously. He wasn't the only one. You're starting to see business people get real enthusiastic about what is coming down the pike, and they should be. Meanwhile, some of the supposed regulators, the more extreme regulators, they're going to be gone. So, for example, Gary Gensler, who's been awful. He's the head of the Securities and Exchanges Commission. He's been focused largely on preventing business from making investment. Wall Street executives are happy to see him go. He is going to be tossed out immediately. Some of the possibilities to replace him would be Dan Gallagher, chief legal officer at Robinhood and previous SEC commissioner. Meanwhile, over at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is Elizabeth Warren's Orwellian institution to crack down on the markets, Trump is going to install a new leader at the CFPB. One name that has been floated is Todd Zwicky, a law professor at George Mason University. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, the chairman resigned in May. Now, the Trump administration is poised to loosen the reins somewhat at the FDIC to allow banks to actually do their business. Again, it is going to be a boom time in American life. Everybody who's in business knows it. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is going to go in there and he's going to start cutting. According to the Wall Street Journal, lessons from the Elon Musk School of Management shed light on how the billionaire will go about slashing government spending in a new Trump White House. We know, for example, that when Elon Musk took over X, he fired 80% of the workforce. Increasing efficiency is something that Elon Musk is very much familiar with. Now, again, he's not going to be able to cut trillions of dollars from the budget, but there will be a rare window of opportunity to pursue spending cuts for sure. And Musk is going to go through, and a lot of these government contracts were done on a no-bid basis. You could see him reopen all of that and bring down costs solely on that basis as well. Meanwhile, federal workers are preparing for cuts, and they're preparing for the possibility of forced relocation because Donald Trump is talking about taking many of these departments and moving them outside of Washington, D.C., which is great. Gets rid of the entire swamp entirely. So what you would see, presumably, is like the Department of Agriculture would move out. You would see other departments moved out of Washington, D.C. Schedule F would strip job protections from many career federal employees in policy roles. So get ready. Trump's a-coming. And the boom is coming as well. As the Wall Street Journal says, Wall Street has rarely been more excited by an election. U.S. stocks' capitalization rose by $1.62 trillion on Wednesday, their fifth best one-day showing ever following Donald Trump's decisive election victory. Investors are celebrating, said Jack Ablin, the chief investment officer at Crescent Capital in Chicago. The enthusiasm is especially heated in a few areas. Banks and other financial companies climbed. Investors expect regulatory scrutiny will ease. Some also expect more deal-making. All of this is going to change. All of it is going to be better. In just one moment, we're going to be joined by the brand new senator from Montana. That is coming momentarily. First, ever feel like you're being watched on the internet? Unfortunately, you're not just being paranoid. You are indeed being monitored every single time you go online. Internet service providers can see every single website you visit. In the United States, they're even allowed to sell your browsing history. And yes, that includes everything you do inside that so-called incognito tab. You need to protect yourself. The way I do it is with ExpressVPN, an easy-to-use app that encrypts and reroutes all my internet traffic through secure servers. When I use ExpressVPN, my internet provider can't see what I'm doing online, which means they've got nothing to sell to advertisers. They also can't track my IP address, that unique number that identifies you on the internet. Without access to my IP address, those data brokers can't build a profile about me or sell my information to marketers. Finally, my data stays exactly where it should. With me, the best part, you don't need to be tech savvy to use it. ExpressVPN is as simple as tapping one button. They've got apps for everything. Your phone, laptop, desktop, tablet, whatever device you've got, they've covered it. No wonder it's the top-rated VPN by tech experts at CNET, The Verge, and pretty much every other major tech review site. Right now, you can take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday Cyber Monday offer to get the absolute best VPN deal you'll find all year. Use my special link, expressvpn.com/Ben. Get 4 extra months with the 12-month plan or 6 extra months with the 24-month plan totally free. That's expressvpn.com/Ben. Get an extra 4 or even 6 months of ExpressVPN for free. Also, did you know American homeowners collectively hold over $32 trillion in equity? Unfortunately, cybercriminals are increasingly targeting this wealth through a scam the FBI calls house stealing. Traditional security measures like house alarms, doorbell cameras, deadbolts can't protect you because these thieves aren't actually after your belongings, they're after your equity itself. Without title monitoring, scammers can transfer your home's title to their name using a simple document filed at the county office. Once they control your title, they can take out loans against your property or even sell it without your knowledge. The most frightening part, many victims don't discover the theft until collection notices or foreclosure warnings arrive in their mailbox. By then, the damage is done, leaving homeowners facing a financial and legal nightmare. That's why I want to tell you about Home Title Lock's triple lock protection. They monitor your title 24/7, alert you to any changes, and if the worst happens, they provide full restoration services at no out-of-pocket cost to you. Quick question. When is the actual last time you checked on your home title? Yeah, that's what I thought. Never. That's exactly what scammers are counting on. You can check on your home title today. Make sure you're not already a victim. You can get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of triple lock protection today. Head on over to HomeTitleLock.com, use promo code Shapiro, or click the link in the description. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Shapiro. Again, that's HomeTitleLock.com. Go check them out right now. Now, when it comes to foreign policy as well, foreign policy is going to be a very different look. Already, Team Trump is announcing a maximum pressure campaign against Iran, which of course is the proper strategy against Iran. They're going to dramatically increase sanctions on Iran. They're going to throttle its oil sales as part of an aggressive strategy to undercut Tehran's support of violent Mideast proxies and its nuclear program, according to people briefed on President Trump's early plans. When he takes office on January 20th, Trump's approach to Iran is likely to be colored by the knowledge that its agents tried to assassinate him and former top national security aides after they left office. Plus, Iran is believing to be seeking revenge for the 2020 Trump drone strike that killed Qasem Soleimani, the head of Iran's covert paramilitary operations. People tend to take that stuff personally, said Mick Mulroy, a top Pentagon official for the Mideast in Trump's first term. If he's going to be hawkish on any particular country designated major adversaries, it is, in fact, Iran. They're going to choke off Iran's oil income. They're going to diplomatically isolate Iran. Brian Hook, who oversaw Iran policy at the State Department in Trump's first term, is now in charge of the Trump transition for the State Department, said Thursday the president-elect had no interest in seeking to overthrow Iran's rulers. But, of course, what he means by that is that the conditions are going to be made ripe for the Iranian people to do what they should do and overthrow Iran's rulers. Here's Brian Hook, again, former top State Department official. He's going to be in charge, apparently, of not just Iran policy, but staffing of the State Department. That place needs to be cleaned out stem to stern. It is rife with foreign policy dolt, and Brian Hook needs to go in there with a chainsaw and just start cutting people. Here's Brian Hook explaining about foreign policy.
But in my personal experience, I know that when we deter the Iranian regime, you have the countries that you described who are on the front lines of Iranian aggression, doing everything they can to be a part of that deterring Iran. President Trump has no interest in regime change. The future of Iran will be decided by the Iranian people. I think we've said that repeatedly over 4 years. But what President Trump did say in Riyadh was that he would isolate Iran diplomatically and weaken them economically so that they can't fund all of the violence that's going with the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas, Hezbollah, PIJ, and these proxies that run around Iraq and Syria today, all of whom destabilize Israel and our Gulf partners.
He, of course, is exactly correct about all of that. Now, the anchor over at CNN then asked about, well, how are you going to do the Abraham Accords when the Saudis have said that they want a Palestinian state? And Brian Hook properly says, hey, we provided a peace plan when we were in office. It was the Jared Kushner peace plan. And it provided a Palestinian state possibility after a bunch of conditions. And we were ready to move forward with that. That's the plan we're going to use moving forward here.
If you look at the really important work that Jared Kushner did when he was essentially leading so much of the diplomacy in the Middle East, he put forward a political and economic vision for peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians that many Arab governments officially said was a credible, good faith effort, and they called for both sides to come to the table. That plan, which Israel endorsed, had a path to a two-state solution. This war, the October 7th attack by Hamas, has really not put anybody in much of a mood to be talking about this subject, because obviously Hamas doesn't believe in a two-state solution, nor do they want a ceasefire. And after what Hamas did on October 7th, there are many Israelis right now who are focused on other things, specifically keeping them safe from this kind of evil terrorism that they endured on October 7th.
Okay, that is a realistic view of the situation. And let us be real about something. The reason that the Saudi foreign minister has been talking about the Palestinian state so much is because Joe Biden has been talking about the Palestinian state so much. It's not possible for the Saudi kingdom to be anti-Palestinian state more than the Americans. Well, the reality is, do you think the Saudis want a Palestinian state that will be sponsored, funded, giant terror apparatus against Saudi? Because that's who would be Iran would be funding that. That would be an Iranian proxy state. You think Saudi wants that? You think anyone in the region wants that except for Iran? The answer, of course, is no. You know how I know that? Because Jordan is 70% Palestinian. Anytime they want, they could have a Palestinian state by holding an election. You know why they won't? Because the minute they do hold an election, every member of the Hashemite dynasty will be hanging from a crane. That is the reason. Okay, by the way, the Biden administration on their way out there doing precisely what you would think. They've set the world on fire. They did, particularly in the Middle East. They set the world on fire. You can tell that the stark difference between the Trump administration 2.0 and the Biden administration, I mean, it is astonishing. It's truly amazing. So Trump wins. Within one day, Qatar, which is a cutout for the Iranian regime, Qatar sort of plays this weird middle of the road path with regard to Iran, where they share oil fields with Iran, so they're very friendly with Iran, but they then try to present themselves as negotiators with the West, which is why you'll see Qatar Airways that is advertised in Western stadiums and all the rest of this sort of stuff. Well, Qatar, knowing that Trump is coming in, has apparently, according to Khan News, which is Israel's public broadcast system, has now notified Hamas officials staying in Qatar they are no longer welcome and they must immediately make preparations to depart. That's all it took was Donald Trump winning. He didn't have to do anything. And Qatar was like, oh man, he's going to come in. He's going to punish us for being friendly with Hamas, isn't he? Probably should kick these people to the curb. It just shows you what a change the Trump administration is from the Biden administration. What's the Biden administration doing? Well, meanwhile, according to the Washington Free Beacon, just before Tuesday's presidential election, the Biden-Harris administration quietly waived mandatory terrorism sanctions on the embattled Palestinian government, even as it determined the government's leaders are paying imprisoned terrorists and fomenting violence in breach of American law. The State Department, in a non-public notice to Congress, determined that the Palestinian Authority and Palestine Liberation Organization are not complying with agreements to curb terrorism against Israel and to end their so-called pay-to-slay program, which hands money to imprisoned terrorists for killing Jews. Those violations should trigger American sanctions, but the Biden-Harris administration used its executive power to waive the sanctions. So they are removing sanctions from the terror-sponsoring Palestine Liberation Organization and Palestinian Authority. The State Department told Congress, quote, a blanket denial of visas to PLO members and PA officials to include those who travel to the U.S. in advance to advance U.S. goals and objectives is not consistent with U.S. government's expressed willingness to partner with the PLO and PA leadership. And not coincidentally, it turns out the Biden administration's willingness to humor all of the stupidity and garbage trotted out by Hamas and its media allies has real consequences. So, last night, there was a pogrom over in Amsterdam. So while you have complete mentally ill people like Jen Rubin over at the Washington Post declaring that Donald Trump, the most pro-Israel president in American history, who won a giant chunk of Jews in New York, in New Jersey, in Florida, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, while she declares that he's Hitler, actual little Hitlers are running around in the streets of Amsterdam beating up Jews. Okay, that's exactly what happened last night in Amsterdam. So what happened is that there was a soccer match between a soccer team called Maccabi Tel Aviv and Ajax, which is a national team in Amsterdam, based in Amsterdam. And on the way in, apparently, some of the Israeli fans were shouting rude things about I guess there was some sort of scrum in which Israelis and Palestinian advocates were shouting at each other, and some Palestinian flags, which had been put out there in order to tick off the Israelis, were torn down. None of that's good. What is an actual pogrom is what happened after the match. So after the match, apparently, Israelis and Jews walk out of the match. They're not protected by police outside the stadium. And from what I am told by people who are on the ground, there were bands of young radical Muslims at basically every street corner waiting for people to attack them. And so you end up with film like this in Amsterdam. They're literally running after people in the streets and attacking them in the streets of Amsterdam. So it went on for like an hour and a half with almost no police response. You can see there a Jewish man presumably being kicked in the street.
Where are you going, Asabi? Where are you going? Where are you going? Come here, come here.
They went to hotels. They were attempting to break into hotels. They're trying to break through the doors of hotels. There was film of some of them actually driving cars, trying to run down Jews in the streets. Sagiv Barzani, according to the Wall Street Journal, a fan who attended the game, said that he and other Israelis fell to the ground as they tried to escape the attackers. A planned demonstration against the Israeli team had been moved away from the stadium. Protesters still tried to go there and then clashed with police after the game, according to Barzani. His head was stomped on as people chanted "Free Palestine." One fan was being punched in the face, another one being cut in the face with a key. I thought I was going to die. Everyone was running like crazy. People were being thrown into the canals of Amsterdam. People were punching and kicking people, including in Amsterdam's Central Dam Square. One clip filmed from inside a car driving on the sidewalk showed it hitting a pedestrian who rolls over it and onto the ground as a voice is heard saying, "Drive over him." Another video showed a man trying to offer his money to assailants who screamed, "For the children and free Palestine now." So, again, just wonderful behavior here by the pro-Hamasniks who have now spread throughout the West. When you're running around the streets beating up Jews, that's what you call a pogrom. That is legitimately like the definition of a pogrom at this point. It was so bad that the king of the Netherlands, Willem-Alexander, called up the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog, and apologized. He said, quote, "We failed the Jewish community of the Netherlands during World War II, and last night we failed again." Early this morning, Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof updated the president on all actions being taken and added his strong condemnation of the incidents. Meanwhile, Geert Wilders, who of course has been the big winner of the last election in the Netherlands, he said, "I just spoke by phone with Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu and told him of my anger and shame on what happened in Amsterdam. There's no place for anti-Semitism and Jew hate in the Netherlands. I will do all I can to protect Jews and stop and expel Islamic radicals." He also added that this is the consequence of what happens when you allow unchecked radical Islamic immigration into your country. He says they governed for 10 years and looked the other way for 10 years. We're not allowed to talk about Islam as a source of anti-Semitism. They did not dare to kick criminals out of the country. And now we have a Jew hunt in Amsterdam. Well, I mean, those are the wages of propaganda that was winked at and nodded at by the Biden administration. By a West that decided unfettered immigration from areas that hate the West was a genius idea, that softness on terrorism was actually going to be of benefit to the West. That's just some of the wages. Well, all that's about to come to a screeching halt under Trump 2.0. Because what the United States does has radical ramifications for the rest of the world. In just a moment, we'll get to the situation over in the Senate. First, did you know you spend a third of your life sleeping? That's around 25 years of your life in bed. With numbers like that, your mattress isn't just furniture. It's an investment in your well-being. That's where Helix Sleep comes in. I never thought a mattress could make such a difference until I actually tried Helix. Well, what sets them apart? Well, unlike those one-size-fits-all brands, Helix offers 20 different mattress options because they understand everyone's sleep needs are unique. It all starts with their sleep quiz, a game changer for finding your perfect match. When I mentioned my struggle with lower back pain on softer mattresses, they recommended their medium firm option. The result is I'm sleeping like a baby in the hours where I don't have to cover what's going on. Looking for that cloud-like feeling? You need their Luxe. You want the ultimate sleep experience? You need their Elite. You need extra support? The Helix Plus has got you covered. Forget those awkward mattress store visits. Helix will deliver directly to your door. Helix is so confident in their product, they give you 100 nights to try it out. That's over 3 months to test your mattress in the real world. Plus, every mattress comes with a 10 to 15-year warranty. So, if you'd like to sleep as soundly as I do, head on over to helixsleep.com/Ben and take that sleep quiz. Plus, Helix is offering up to 25% off site-wide and 2 free Dream Pillows with any mattress purchase. Even better, Helix is offering a free bedding bundle, which is 2 Dream Pillows, a sheet set, a mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. That's right. Just go to helixsleep.com/Ben. That's helixsleep.com/Ben. With Helix, better sleep starts right now. Also, in the age of mindless consumerism and instant gratification, finding a gift that actually matters seems about as likely as enjoying a vegan potluck. But fear not. I've found it. The thing that might just restore your faith in gift giving this upcoming holiday season. Paint Your Life transforms your photos into a one-of-a-kind, beautiful, hand-painted portrait by professional artists. Imagine giving a hand-painted portrait of a moment that actually matters. The process is really, really straightforward. I've done it myself. No jumping through hoops, no bureaucratic nightmare. It takes less than 5 minutes to order a custom-made, hand-painted portrait. You simply choose a photo, and Paint Your Life transforms it into a painting. Again, I received a painting from them over a year ago. It hangs in my house for the whole family to enjoy. It's actually from the day of my son's Brit Milah. It's a beautiful picture of my entire family plus the doggo. Here's the best part. You can combine photos or add elements to upgrade existing photos. You want to include a long-lost relative in your family portrait? You can actually do that. If you want to put yourself in a location you've always dreamed of visiting, you can do that as well. You get to approve every stage of the process and request as many modifications as you want to ensure the portrait is painted just like you wanted. You can even get your hand-painted portrait in as little as 2 weeks. So start ordering now. You'll have it in time for the holidays. This holiday season, you can give the most meaningful gift you've ever given from paintyourlife.com. There's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded, guaranteed. Right now, limited time offer. Get 20% off your painting. That's correct. 20% off and free shipping. To get this special offer, text the word Ben to 87204. That's Ben to 87204. Paint Your Life. Celebrate the moments that matter most. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Alrighty. So, meanwhile, the Senate of the United States, one of the big questions was going to be, if the Democrats took over, whether they were going to kill the filibuster. And Mitch McConnell came out yesterday and said, listen, we have a system of laws in this country and customs in this country, and we're not going to kill the filibuster. Remember, these are the people who are supposed to be the threat to the system. We were told democracy is ending, according to the left. Well, it seems like when you're in the majority and then you say you're going to uphold the filibuster, that's a pretty good indicator that perhaps actually democracy is not ending.
I think one of the most gratifying results of the Senate becoming Republican, the filibuster will stand. There won't be any new states admitted that give a partisan advantage to the other side. And we'll quit beating up the Supreme Court every time we don't like a decision they make.
Okay, he is right about that. Again, your institutions of American life are safe. They are safe. This is very good. It means that we are going to have predictable government for the first time in quite a long time. Because I do not think that the Trump administration has any intentions of overrunning their appointed executive authority under the Constitution. Meanwhile, John Thune, who's a real possibility for Senate Majority Leader since Mitch McConnell is stepping down, right now the sort of inside scuttlebutt suggests that it's between Thune, who would be good. I know there are a lot of people out there who are suggesting that he'd be terrible. And by the way, they're kind of using Mitch McConnell as an example of what a bad majority leader looks like. Hate to break it to you, Mitch McConnell is the most effective Senate majority leader in Republican history. Like, you like the Supreme Court the way it is, right? You like what President Trump did during his first term? Almost none of that is possible without Mitch McConnell being an incredibly effective leader. That's not the same thing as necessarily going on TV a lot and being charismatic. You don't have to be Newt Gingrich to be an effective Senate majority leader. You have to wheel, you have to deal, you have to manipulate. I mean, that's what it is. John Thune is a possibility. John Cornyn is a possibility. Rick Scott, as I say, is running for it. Here is John Thune yesterday.
I think going into it, if you looked at the polls, obviously everybody expected a tight race, but it was a very convincing, resounding win for President Trump and literally up and down the ballot. And we outperformed 2020 in 48 states and across all demographic groups, and actually did better in 2,300 countries or counties, I should say, around the country than we did 4 years ago. So this was I think, an example that the American people have said enough is enough with the Biden-Harris agenda. They're ready for a different direction for the country.
He's right, obviously. The scaremongering that is coming from the news industry is truly amazing. So you have a piece from the Washington Post titled, Trump win complicates Biden's lame duck foreign policy. Well, I mean, his foreign policy is trash, so I would certainly hope so. Meanwhile, the Washington Post says 50 world leaders meet to strategize on how to deal with Trump. Well, I don't know. Maybe they ought to form their own robust foreign policies as opposed to just living off American largesse. Maybe they should stop kowtowing to, if they don't want to kowtow to the Russians, don't kowtow to the Russians. If you schmucks had actually done what you were supposed to before the Ukraine war, none of this would have happened. Instead, Germany decided to power its entire economy on unicorn farts and Russian oil. That seems to be the predictable response, is that Russia feels like it has leverage over Europe. You know, maybe Donald Trump will force you guys back into the realm of reality. According to the Washington Post, although they'd been preparing for months for a possible Trump comeback, European policymakers were facing the reality the continent is nowhere near Trump-proof, a realization made more stark this week by the collapse of the coalition government in Germany, Europe's largest economy and political heavyweight. While German politics are effectively paralyzed, and while European economies are struggling, policymakers acknowledge there's only so much leaders on the continent can do to deter Trump from launching a trade war, to reduce their dependence on the U.S. security umbrella, or to maintain American backing for Ukraine. So maybe they should do it themselves. I know, what a concept. What a concept. By the way, I know many European leaders, secretly, quietly, a lot of the European leaders, not the big ones who you hear about, you know, not the Emmanuel Macrons, the other European leaders, the ones who actually live under Russian threat. Many of them are ecstatic that Trump was elected because they think that Joe Biden is a weakling, because he is. Well, joining us on the line is the brand newly elected senator from the state of Montana, replacing the execrable John Tester. Tim Sheehy joins us on the line. Tim, congrats on your big win.
Thanks, and thank you for your help up here. You know, for those of you who don't know, Ben came up and did a fantastic event for us in Kalispell in the final weeks of the election. And it was events like that that really helped people crystallize what's at stake, because we had to save this country, and we did. And from coast to coast, all socioeconomic classes, all races, colors, creeds, a mandate was delivered that America wants to put America first again. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. So, Tim, obviously you beat Tester pretty soundly here. You ended up flipping the seat by some 60,000 votes, 60,000 votes. You know, in a state like Montana that doesn't have a giant population, that is a solid margin. You beat him 53-45, essentially. Those are big numbers. You know, the state of Montana has been a red state. They've been hesitant to kick out John Tester because he's been masquerading for a long time as sort of a populist, blue-collar guy. And I think that's one of the stories of this election, is that people who masquerade got tossed out of office.
Yeah, the Democrat Party, as I've been saying, that the D on the ballot no longer stands for Democrat, it stands for deception. You know, this campaign ran by the Democrats up and down the ticket from Kamala Harris all the way to the bottom were campaigns of deception. I mean, as you well know, at the same time Kamala Harris was running commercials that were pro-Israel in places that would help her, and pro-Palestine and pro-Hamas in places that were not. You had Bob Casey and John Tester and Slotkin and all these others running campaigns talking about how they were close to Trump, supported Trump's policies. Meanwhile, their voting record belied that and showed the truth that they have been 100% supporters of the Biden-Harris-Obama regime. So the deception collapsed. People were tired of the mainstream media complex. Another podcaster I love, Sean Ryan, who's a former SEAL like me, has a great, and he did a fantastic video in the wake of Joe Rogan's podcast with President Trump, 3-hour marathon, where no stone was left unturned, where he said what we just saw was the collapse of the credibility of the legacy media complex that has been manufacturing lies and false narratives that have been manipulating the voters of America for 50 years. And like John Thune just said in that audio clip you played, Americans said enough is enough. We're tired of narrative. We're tired of misconstrued facts. The truth is the truth. And mass illegal migration, unchecked inflation, disastrous foreign policy decisions are bad. They're bad for our businesses. They're bad for our families. They're bad for our communities. And we are going to put our interests first. And as you heard me say at our rally, you know, it's been a key part of my message. It's not too much to expect for the American people to expect from their government that they've elected and that they pay for every day with more and more burdensome taxes. It's not too much for them to expect that government should do what's best for them first. And that has not been what's happened in the last 3.5 years, and we're going to fix it.
You know, Tim, one of the things that has happened is, as you say, people have not put America first. When America is strong, America ends up first, and the rest of the world benefits from that. That is the message of President Trump's first term. I think that's what you're going to see in his second term as well. The business community is ecstatic. They are over the moon about President Trump being elected. I mean, every business person that I know is just excited. Means that you're going to have a stable, solid ground to work upon. One of the big problems under Biden and under the Democrats is that they can just rip the carpet right out underneath you anytime you are trying to build a business. I mean, they can just destroy your business willy-nilly. Meanwhile, Trump is talking deregulation. The Senate is going to be involved, and I assume making the Trump tax cuts permanent, maybe going even further. It's going to be open. America's going to be open for business here.
That's exactly right. And the business leaders, a lot of whom, have you alluded to, it's kind of like the European leaders. They've been afraid to come out and stick their neck out. Thank God for Elon Musk making an unequivocal endorsement saying, I'm one of the most successful business leaders in America. And I can tell you without hesitation, without question, without qualification, that Donald Trump and the conservative policies he's championing are good for business. They're good for my employees, and we need to put them in the driver's seat, because we've seen in the last 3.5 years, it really was a more extreme extension of the Obama policies, from 08, through 16, which is anti-business, which is more regulation, which is take your fate and instead of owning it yourself, hand it to the government and hope that they do better. Take your financial fate, take the fate of your business, take the fate of your family, and abdicate it and hand it to government bureaucrats who have no accountability. They have no experience. I mean, look at Lena Khan, who's our FEC chair, who functionally has zero business experience of any kind. She's an academic who wrote a bunch of papers, and they've been put her on the bridge of the American economy, the most powerful economy in the history of the world, and she's done terrible, terrible things with it. And the number one most important single axiom of the American economy, that frankly is what set America apart since day one. America's magic has never been our government or our military. It's been the fact that we were the first country in history to have been based on the entrepreneurial spirit, the achievements of the individual, and the unleashing of the power of the individual. And that's realized through a free market economy and ultimately through small business. And what we've seen is a war on small business, a war on ingenuity, a war on hard work. And that's going to end. Donald Trump is going to get full support from the Senate. It's very clear that, what the Senate needs to be is not a rubber stamp for Donald Trump, but an engine for him, an engine to help him get these things done. Instead of just responding to his policy desires, we need to be a partner with his White House and with his appointees to ensure that we aren't just clearing the path for a bunch of executive orders that can get undone by the next president, like we've been seeing these last few administrations. We need to pass laws that enshrine these priorities in law that can't simply be undone by the next administration, like securing the border. Enough of this executive order, secure the border back and forth. We need to pass a law that will withstand judicial review at every step of the way to ensure that our border is secure, so we can protect the lives and livelihoods of our people.
Now, Tim Sheehy, one of the things that's amazing about you, you are an energetic dude. I mean, that is a long campaign, and I can sense that you are raring to go. You're going to get in Congress. And as you say, Senate needs to be an engine, needs to be moving fast, because, you never know what the next election is going to bring, which means you got a 2-year period to do an enormous amount of things. And I know you're going to be a leader in doing that. Senator-elect Tim Sheehy from Montana, again, congratulations, and we'll see you in D.C.
Thanks, Ben. Let's get it done.
Alrighty, folks, just when the left and the first DEI presidential candidate thought their week couldn't get any worse, the weekend is here, and Am I Racist is streaming exclusively at DailyWire Plus. Did you hear that? It is important. The only way you can catch Matt Walsh in the box office smash comedy and now the #1 documentary of the decade is with a DailyWire Plus membership. If you're not a member yet, we've got you covered. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Trump for 47% off new annual memberships. I should mention the new annual membership includes a Leftist Tears tumbler. Yes, you need it. It's been overflowing. And if you're short on Leftist Tears, this tumbler is the receptacle. You get that. You can drink it while you watch Am I Racist. We've got everything except the popcorn. So don't wait. Watch Am I Racist this weekend only on DailyWire Plus. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Trump for 47% off new annual membership. Okay, meanwhile, the left is in a state of complete meltdown. As you can sense, whenever we are optimistic here on the right, the left is very upset. Listen, I understand if you had misconceptions about Donald Trump, if you think that it's just going to be the end of the world, I get you being upset. Seriously, we're making a lot of fun. The people I'm trying to make fun of are not like normal American citizens who may have been misinformed or who may have a different belief system. The people I'm making fun of are the people at the top of the heap. The people I'm making fun of are the people at the top of the economic heap who should know better, who do know better, and who are lying. When they say that this is going to be Hitler, when they say that it's going to be brown shirts, when they say it's the end of America, none of that is true, and they know it's not true. And you can tell they know that it's not true. Those people, I don't even think that it's okay to laugh at. I think it's a duty to laugh at them. Because if you're a person who's deliberately misinforming the American public, we should laugh at you. And frankly, I think we should encourage you in your downward spiral, if that downward spiral means that you lose more. Now, speaking of people who just keep losing, Joy Reid, who is not a repository of joy, she is out there blaming Latinos, of course, because Donald Trump won, according to some exit polls, 46% of the entire Latino vote. So that means that Joy Reid, because she's higher on the intersectional hierarchy than Latinos, she gets to say whatever she wants about Latino people now.
Also Latino men who, despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters and chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families and to your wives, sisters, and abuelas from here on in.
Oh, man. Just keep going with this. Seriously, just keep going with this. Really, keep doubling down on this, Joy Reid. I really love it. More identity politics, more blaming Americans. Sunny Hostin joins the crew. She is also blaming Latino men. Now she says they're sexist. That's the real problem.
Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their doorstep. And they were begging people to care about it for years. We need to take some lessons.
That's what that was.
The lessons are not
Knock,
misogyny.
knock.
Sexism.
Who's there? Oh my gosh, it's Whoopi.
Oh my goodness, these folks. So, wow. Meanwhile, former vice chair of the DNC agrees. This is Michael Blake saying that Americans are racist. Just keep doing this, please. More. Pour it on. Keep calling Americans racist. Keep calling Latino men sexist. Please do it. Keep just yelling at the American people about how terrible they are for not having elected this absolute nothing burger of a candidate on a terrible agenda that Americans hate. Please keep telling Americans how they're the worst people ever. That's a way to victory. Do it. Do it.
Democrats, we have to be very clear of calling them on who they is. Donald Trump is a white supremacist who has a Project 2025 agenda that wants to implement that. And anyone who voted for those policies need to be clearly counted on that. When you see what happened on Tuesday, it was people, in particular, white men and white women, who unfortunately decided to not vote for the vice president, yet they elected black women in the Supreme Court in Michigan, yet we had victories in Ruben Gallegos going in Arizona, yet we had victories in North Carolina. It was the fear of a Black and South Asian woman that we have to speak about. And if we're not clear about race, gender, and class, we are ignoring the truth of what's happening in the country right now.
I mean, can I just point out that white people actually voted for Trump at a lower clip than they voted for him in 2020? That's actually what happened. The only constituency where Trump actually lost ground, he lost 1 point with white voters in 2024. And then he blew her out. Why? Because a bunch of people who weren't supposed to vote for him voted for him. But please keep going with this. How about Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez? You know, former bartender. She, Coyote Ugly over here. Here she is explaining how it's all misogyny and sexism that is responsible for Kamala Harris's loss.
The fact of the matter is, you know, this race may not have been decided by any one individual factor, but misogyny is very, very real in this country. As another widely known woman of color in office, you know, I knew that sexism and racism were real, but it was not until I got subjected to a national stage that I actually was shocked at how bad it is. You know, you grow up with it, but there is something about being on the receiving line or just nationally exposed to millions of eyeballs at once that you feel that fire hose and you actually understand how deeply ingrained it is. And it is not partisan. It is it transcends.
More tears. More. I require more tears. More. Okay, so I have some more tears for you. How about Professor and New York Times columnist Tressie McMillan Copham urging Dems to double down on identity politics, like on Comedy Central? Because it's been working so well, they need more of it. Please be my guest. Please keep going. Please.
As Donald Trump has proven, what he has proven and the way he has won has proven is that every voter has an identity. Every voter has an identity, and he tapped into one of the most powerful of American identities. He tapped into white identity. Right? And he said, you don't need to be ashamed of this identity. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to make you feel good about it, and you don't have to sacrifice a thing. Donald Trump played identity politics like a fiddle. So when you say that the Democrats lose because we play identity politics, it simply isn't true. This is about whose identities win when you appeal to them. That means you should double down on the identities of your base.
Oh, please keep doing this. By the way, Trump did not run on identity politics. He ran on the reverse. You guys ran on the idea that everybody's a member of a race or a class. Donald Trump ran on the idea that everybody wants American opportunity and you should leave us the hell alone. That's what he ran on. But again, I keep keep going down this rabbit hole. Please. It'll be great. I think that'll be excellent. Meanwhile, the actual tears are breaking out. Apparently, Harvard professors have been canceling class, which is exciting because probably the kids are learning more not being in class than being in class. According to the Harvard Crimson, students awoke to a somber campus following Donald Trump's re-election to the presidency early Wednesday. My heart dropped a little bit, one student said. Apparently, professors have decided to cancel some classes. They encourage students to process in the aftermath of the election, adjusting course requirements in kind. Courses like Sociology 1156, Statistics for Social Sciences, and Applied Math 22A, Solving and Optimizing, as well as several general education courses, including the Ancient Greek Hero and Popular Culture in Modern China, canceled their classes Wednesday, made attendance optional, or extended assignment deadlines. Man, one of the more fun experiences of my life, actually, I remember the 2004 election. I was at Harvard Law School during the 2004 election. I remember that night, John Kerry, who was from Massachusetts, of course, he had set up his victory party just a few stops away on the line. And I remember everybody was prepping for a Kerry victory. And then, of course, he lost. And the next day was just a joy. It was just wonderful. I was walking around campus, having voted for George W. in 2004. And everybody was so upset and down. All I thought to myself was, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And y'all seem real. You know what? I hope that the people at Harvard continue to spiral the toilet, because frankly, my alma mater is not in good shape. Anyway, meanwhile, again, it is fun to watch the celebs. The celebs are also freaking out over at the New York Times. My goodness, I mean, they're going to need some serious opiates over there. The New York Times had all the members of their editorial page talk about the worst version of a Trump administration, what a nightmare it would be. They apparently took it from inside some sort of pantry somewhere without any makeup, looking like an outtake from 10 Cloverfield Lane. Here is Ezra Klein and the rest of the photogenic crew at the New York Times explaining how everyone will die and the earth will explode in a ball of fire because Donald Trump is going to win.
The worst version of a Donald Trump administration is very, very bad.
One that is not only extremist, but also effective in that extremism.
Emboldened by a series of Supreme Court rulings, perhaps bolstered by support in both houses of Congress, Trump will fulfill his promise to be a dictator on day one.
He sends troops into neighborhoods like my own to try to round up undocumented immigrants, that he sets up a network of camps.
Mass deportations. It would likely plunge the United States into something like a recession. His tariffs, likewise, promise to spike prices for most Americans and cause costs to go up dramatically.
That version of Trump could result in abandoning Ukraine to advancing Russian armies, could result in extraordinarily erratic foreign policy in the Middle East.
I mean, Donald Trump often talked about things like bombing Mexico to deal with drug cartels. People stopped him from doing that.
But there's not going to be any adults in the room this time.
The worst version of a Trump administration that seeks various forms of retribution against Trump's enemies, real and perceived.
What a terrible editorial page they have.
Uses the power given to him to harass and undermine his political opposition.
This leads to substantial resistance, mass protest, and also drives his enemies into a cycle of radicalization, intensifying unrest and conflict.
And in the process, doing profound and possibly permanent.
He's the only one who talks about the left here.
Democracy.
Basically, nothing we can do by voting or using our existing institutions will reverse the consolidation of power.
They
I can't believe these people.
Ending if really manifests in the ways that he and other conservatives have discussed them.
And I have a great fear that that's exactly what's going to happen over the next 4 years.
Wow. Well, your fears, I feast upon them. I feast upon them because the things that you're saying are ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, some of them I hope happen. frankly. I hope that President Trump makes our enemies fearful. I hope that President Trump restores the constitutional order by firing a bunch of people in the executive branch. But most of that stuff is just you guys, getting high off your own farts in the car. So perhaps you ought to take a second look at your life right now. You got everything wrong in this election. Maybe you're getting that wrong too. It's funny. They make all these mistakes and then they never actually take in the mistakes that they've made. It's really incredible. Nicole Wallace over on MSNBC, she has announced that she is deleting her Twitter. Well, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, lady.
I have this sort of insatiable interest in every bit of wisdom you can impart. And as a journalist, I hear you about girding ourselves for this moment. As a human, I deleted Twitter today as an act of self-preservation, and because I was no longer able to find the things I was interested in and was seeing a lot of things that I'm not.
Well, a sad story for all of you. Again, as they shed their tears, Donald Trump is moving forward. This is an administration that is going to staff up. From what I see, the staffing decisions look good. It looks like an administration that wants to hit the ground running because Trump's done this before. And again, that I'm unaccustomed to this sort of optimism. I'm just not used to it, folks. I'm going to have to take the weekend to rest up and recover and then come back with my A game because, frankly, I'm short on sleep, but I'm high on life because it was a good week, and hopefully next week will be just as good. In just a moment, we're going to get to the resistance. Yes, Democrats are trying to figure out how they resist. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.